Welcome back, everyone. This is your host, the DN WhatIf, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Had a Quirk that let him travel through the internet? A special shout out to the original creator, JazzTazz. Please make sure to show your support by checking out their work from the description. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Izuku took one last look around the apartment. He still couldn't believe someone had found out and given him help. He sighed internally. If he hadn't been misdiagnosed, he wouldn't have any of these problems. Izuku just had to keep reminding himself that if he hadn't been misdiagnosed, he wouldn't have fallen into the chat in the first place or met Toshi. A pretty good trade in the grand scheme of things. Speaking of which, he was being fostered by two of the group chat's members, which was equally exciting as it was terrifying. On one hand, he was already friends with these people. On the other hand, they don't know he and Blur are one in the same, which means he can't act the same around them as he does in the chat unless he was willing to risk them finding out. Though acting differently wasn't the hard part right now. He was a ball of anxiety, so he wasn't going to be anywhere near as confident sounding as he was through the chat. It was the teasing Aizawa and Yamada in the chat about anything he saw them do, which in most cases Blur probably shouldn't know any of that. Izuku shook his head, breaking out of his thoughts. He'd told them he'd be at their place sometime before 4 p.m. If he didn't leave soon, he'd be late, and as much as he knew they wouldn't mind, he'd rather not deal with any additional anxiety if he could help it. If he'd already been at their house, or even one of the libraries, he'd just use his quirk. But no, the library he normally went to was closer to the school than the new apartment. There was the possibility he could eventually use his quirk on a new device without the setup, but right now that would take far too much energy. He also isn't fully truthful in his quirk registry, and if he wants to keep that aspect of his quirk a secret, he can't just teleport around everywhere. He hadn't planned on letting anyone at his school know. It just so happened Izuku hadn't realized Toshi was on the roof. While walking to Aizawa and Yamada's house, Izuku decided to analyze another current UA student. Looking through the files, trying to find a student he hadn't analyzed yet. He'd gotten through most of the hero course. Occasionally he'd pause to look at a Gen Ed student with an interesting quirk. There was currently a third year whose quirk allowed them to enter other people's minds when the person was asleep. That student had written down a doctor as their career of choice. Finally, Izuku found someone he hadn't analyzed yet, Tamaki Amajiki. His quirk was really interesting, especially while watching the training sessions. Though he didn't seem to have much confidence, that'd have to be worked on before he graduated regardless whether he went underground or limelight. Though it seemed his friends Togata and Hado were trying their best to help him. Maybe recommending sessions with Hound Dog would help? The first few probably wouldn't go anywhere. Unless Amajiki's friends went with him to the first few, then maybe he could eventually get comfortable enough to talk to Hound Dog. Afterwards they could work on making the sessions one-on-one. Almost as soon as Izuku has finished compiling all his notes on Amajiki's quirk and plans to build his confidence, he spots the house. All the previously forgotten anxiety came back full force. Because of course it did. To try and calm his nerves, he did what he does best. Chaos. Chat name. The pros and cons. Blur. At coffee and at cockatoo your child has arrived. You hacked the cameras, didn't you? Blur. Possibly. Cockatoo. Possibly. You did. Blur. I am offended you'd think that. Sure you are. Blur. Betrayal. Cockatoo. Come on, show be nice to Blur. He did tell us the little listener is here. Blur. Did do that. Also you probably want to open that door soon. He might think he's gotten the wrong house. Cockatoo. Oh shit. Almost as soon as Izuku read Yamada's message, the door to their house slammed open. A giggle escaped Izuku as he watched Yamada looking around for him. There you are. Yamada smiled when he finally saw where Izuku was. Just in time, I had just finished making some meringues and I needed someone to test them out. I would get Sho to test them, but he doesn't give good feedback. Yamada led him into the house. Down that hallway is where the rooms are. Your room will be the first door on the right, if you'd like to put your stuff in there now. Thanks, I think I'll set up in my room first. And take a brief break from people so he could calm the fuck down. After you finish setting up, the kitchen is just over there. I'll set a plate of meringues up for when you're ready. Yamada said with a smile so bright Izuku practically had to squint. Opening the door revealed a decently sized room. On one side was the bed, next to it was a desk while on the other wall stood a closet. Not a lot there, but that was to be expected. It was likely a guest room before Tsukachi decided to be rude and actually investigate his lack of parents. Izuku put a few things he needed on the desk and his clothes in the closet, though he wasn't sure how much he really was meant to unpack. Was he meant to unpack everything? Was this really his room now? Or was this only temporary? So many questions. Toshi would probably know, but he didn't want to bother his best friend just yet. He was probably unpacking too. Right, he was meant to be going to the kitchen when he was done unpacking. He was probably done unpacking then. At least until he could ask Toshi how much he was actually meant to unpack. Midoriya will no longer be attending this school. The teacher, whatever the fuck her name was, only mentioned Deku for a moment before moving on to the useless lesson. Katsuki could hear the rest of the class celebrating Deku's disappearance. Everyone was excited, all assuming Deku had finally listened to all their advice. Everyone but Katsuki. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. He knew as soon as it left his mouth, he should have never told Deku to jump off a roof. But everyone else had said it and nothing had happened. So why did he have to go and do it after Katsuki had finally said it? Though there's the chance that Deku had just changed schools, but how likely was it really? If Auntie had found out about all the bullying then maybe, but Katsuki would have heard it from the old hag first. On the other hand, if Deku had died he also would have heard it from the old hag. God, it was far too fucking confusing. He shouldn't even care. Deku was just some quirkless extra who dreamed to be a hero when he was too weak to be one. Katsuki should be happy. Deku wasn't in his way anymore. Was he in his way to begin with? Fuck, Katsuki hates this. Oi, old hag. Katsuki called out as soon as he slammed the door open. I told you to stop calling me that brat. The old hag called back. Katsuki rolled his eyes. What the fuck do you want? Apparently Izuku left the school. Did Auntie tell you anything about that? Katsuki didn't care about Deku at all. He just had to know what happened. If he was going to be the best pro hero ever, he had to know the truth to everything. Like how quirkless people were weak. I thought he left ages ago? Inko moved to the other side of Japan, 4 years ago now for her job. A fucking course, it had to get even more confusing. He's only just left a few days ago. Only got announced today. Why would Deku still stay at Aldra if Auntie had moved to the other side of Japan? That's weird. Inko doesn't have any family nearby. Why would Izuku travel so far just for school? Neither mentioned Deku's dad as a possibility. He's been a deadbeat for years. I'll call Inko later to ask about it. Katsuki could only nod before leaving to go to his room. None of this made sense. Deku was still at Aldra when they moved. He only just left the school. And most of all, Katsuki was spending so much fucking time thinking about it. Deku was a stupid quirkless extra. That's what he'd been told his whole life. He should be happy to not see the nerd's face. He should have been celebrating with the extras in his class. But instead he wasn't worried. He's just focusing on the facts. That's what the best hero would do. Fuck, he hated this so much. His door banging open broke him out of his thoughts. What the fuck, old hag? The old hag just rolled her eyes. Fine, brat, I'll just leave instead of telling you what I just fucking learned. I don't fucking care what you learned. Katsuki screamed at her. Just fuck off, dash. Inko has no fucking clue where Izuku is. The old hag interrupted. Katsuki froze. She abandoned Izuku when she moved. The old hag left soon after. Katsuki was still frozen. And he had just left Deku? And he kept going to school. Did the school know? The old hag didn't, so probably not. Fuck, what was he meant to do now? Katsuki had no idea if Deku was alive or not. Does he file a missing person report? God damn it, just yesterday he didn't even care the nerd was gone. He ignored the feeling of wrong. He ignored the worry. He ignored the bile rising up his throat. But now it was all he could think about. Days went by. The old hag had gone to the closest police station to file the missing person report. But no report was filed. According to her, as soon as she mentioned Deku's quirk status, the officer at the desk interrupted her, saying they couldn't waste police resources on a weak quirkless kid. Deku still hadn't returned to school. Katsuki didn't know why he thought Deku would come back. Maybe he thought the teacher had lied. Most of the extras in his class moved on quickly. Fingers and eyes kept talking about it, going on and on how Deku had finally taken the advice Katsuki had so kindly given him. It only took one explosion to get them to shut up. Katsuki had no idea why he was getting so worked up over all this. Every time he thought of the whole situation surrounding Deku, it always ended up with that. Why did he care? He has asked himself that so many times in the last few days. Katsuki was the strongest. Deku was the weakest. He shouldn't care about Deku going missing. It was all too much. Too confusing. To distract himself, Katsuki started training more. Studying more. Rearranging his room. All to stop himself from thinking about it. One of the days he was rearranging his room, he came across a box. It was old, starting to fall apart. Opening it flooded Katsuki with memories. It was filled to the brim with gifts Deku had given him when they were younger. Most was All Might merch, but that wasn't what he focused on. A notebook was shoved roughly into the box, crumpling slightly. It was the book Deku had given him on Christmas. Katsuki had already gotten his quirk by then, Deku marveling at how strong it was. He was practically bursting at the seams with different ideas on how to use it for hero work. Katsuki didn't pay much attention, only really focusing on how big he could make the explosion. Then on Christmas Deku gave him that notebook. All his ideas, written into one book, for Katsuki to read to learn about his quirk. Once again Katsuki had ignored it, shoving it away in a box. But maybe he should read it. Maybe he should answer those questions. Zashi had been stress baking all morning. First it was apple pie. Then red velvet cupcakes. Then it was choc chip cookies. Finally he moved on to meringues, arguing he'd save them for last so Midoriya could arrive just as they came out of the oven. The whole time Zashi was baking, Shoyuta was laying on the couch catching up on the sleep he missed from his patrol. Up until his alarm went off. He had begrudgingly set it after Zashi had insisted he had to be fully awake when Midoriya arrived. When Shoyuta finally sat up, he found a fresh cup of coffee on the side table right next to his phone. Just as he went to grab it, his phone lit up, telling him Blur had pinged him in the chat. He narrowed his eyes at the phone. Fucking. Blur hacked the outside cameras. Because of course he had to. Shoyuta snorted as Zashi ran outside to find Midoriya. It took less than a minute for Shoyuta to hear 2 sets of footsteps in the hallway. He listened as Zashi gave him the option to put his stuff away in his new room. Midoriya chose to put his stuff away before coming out for meringues. Almost immediately Zashi went to the kitchen and took the meringues out of the oven, sighing in relief that he hadn't burnt them. "Are you finally done baking?" Shoyuta asked, a smirk making its way on his face. "Oh, shut up, you know I'm stressed." Zashi glared at him, though there was no real heat behind it. "In all seriousness, I'm scared of being like the foster parents we had to deal with." "I know, I don't want to be like those people either. We just have to try our best." Shoyuta got up and made his way to Zashi, enveloping him in a hug. One of the few reasons they hadn't started fostering until now was all thanks to their bad experiences when they had gone through the foster system. Both had entered it when they had gotten their quirks. Shuda's parents had deemed his quirk too villainous for their family of perfect quirks. Zashi had been abandoned after deafening his parents. His quirk was deemed too dangerous. It wasn't mentioned how Shoyuta couldn't stand eye masks, or how Hizashi couldn't handle anything that covered his mouth. How neither one could stand small, too small, far too small. Why was it always so small rooms? It was never mentioned why they both refused to go to normal hospitals unless absolutely necessary. How Recovery Girl healed far too many bruises and cuts. Why Nedzu had a small building of dorms built in their second year at UA. Shoyuta was shaken out of his thoughts when he heard a door open. Midoriya must have finished setting up. Zashi made his way over to the meringues to put a few on a plate while Shoyuta made his way back to the couch to finally drink the coffee he had left there. He froze. Gribo was staring at him, one paw raised up ready to dip into his coffee. Shoyuta ran forward, in an attempt to stop the crime that was about to happen. But all that effort was for nothing, for as soon as Shoyuta was at arm's length of the coffee, the paw dropped. He dropped to his knees, in emotional pain from the loss. Behind him he heard two sets of laughter. Turning around, Shoyuta saw Zashi holding a plate of meringues next to Midoriya, who had likely seen the whole thing. Ding. Both Shoyuta and Zashi grabbed their phones in unison. Blur. Sent a video. Nedzu is now my favorite person, laughing face. Almighty leader. Yes, I remember putting those in. Blur. This is the best day ever. God fucking damn it. Cockatoo. I don't even know how to feel. On one hand, knowing there's a video is amazing. On the other hand, Nedzu put cameras in our house without us knowing. And Blur can see through them. Drugs. Damn, Grebo is feeling really evil today. Blur. Drugs. Normally he would have just knocked the coffee over and walked away. Blur. That was personal. Cockatoo. What did you do to him, Sho? Nothing today. I haven't changed his litter yet. Cockatoo. Oh yeah, that do it. Blur. All that just because the litter hadn't been changed yet? If it isn't changed by 9 a.m. every morning he becomes evil. As if he's not evil normally. Shoyuta rolled his eyes before putting his phone away. What's the cat's name? Midoriya asked, looking a little confused. Grebo had walked over to the cat tree, sitting at the top. His name is Grebo and he's a little shit. Midoriya started walking towards the cat tree. I wouldn't recommend going near him. Shoyuta was interrupted as Midoriya put his hand on Grebo. Both Zashi and him waited silently, scared of what would happen. Only for Grebo to start purring. What the actual fuck? Chat name, the new parentals. Could Shinso and I come over at some point? I think he's stressed and it'd prob be good to give him and Midoriya time to hang out. Oh, that's a good idea. She actually had a good idea. I have good ideas. Once in a blue moons. It was my idea to make this chat. And it's turned out good so far. To be fair, we've only had this chat for a few days. You're meant to be on my side. Really? Yes, really. We are meant to team up against the grumpy one. But what if I don't want to team up against the grumpy one? Then don't. Anyway, what time were you thinking of dropping by, Nem? I'm going to ignore the blatant disrespect. Does tomorrow work? The sooner the better, honestly. It should work. Maybe come over a bit before lunch? We could go get some takeaway for lunch, which leaves them some time to themselves. Sounds good. *degree asterisk. To help them get comfortable, Toshi was coming over today. That's what Aizawa had told Izuku anyway. He was thankful Toshi was coming over. It'd make asking him all the questions he had over now being fostered easier. Izuku didn't know how to feel about being fostered. On one hand, it has allowed him more chaos. He knew when something funny happened in Aizawa's house, and from that he knew which part of Nedzu's camera footage to send into the chat. On the other hand, he had no idea how to be a foster child and he had to keep being Blur a secret. Overall though, Izuku thought he was doing a decent job at both. Thanks to the cameras, he didn't really have to worry about saying something that Blur shouldn't know. And he didn't really have to worry about saying something Midoriya shouldn't know since he was far too anxious for that sort of shit. His door opened slightly, causing Izuku to look over. Grebo had opened the door and was walking right towards Izuku. According to Aizawa and Yamada, Grebo hated everyone, scratching people out of nowhere and causing harm to anything the person showed an interest in. Like the coffee Grebo had dipped his paw in when Izuku arrived. Surprisingly, at least to Aizawa and Yamada, was Grebo liking Izuku. Not that Izuku was complaining though. Having a cat that liked him when he was stressed was pretty nice. He wondered how Grebo would react to Toshi. Hopefully not too badly. Izuku knew how much Toshi liked cats. A knock at the door shook Izuku out of his thoughts. He could faintly hear it open and Yamada explained to someone where his room was. A few moments later the door opened wider. "Hey Toshi." Izuku smiled, moving Grebo over both so Toshi could sit on the bed but also in case of Grebo being, well, Grebo. "Hey Izuku. Cute cat." Toshi said while sitting down on Izuku's bed. "This is Grebo, right?" "Yup. Apparently he hates everyone so I'd be careful patting him? So far he's liked me." Izuku looked at Grebo, who had narrowed his eyes at Toshi. "I'd wait a bit before trying to pat him. He doesn't look all too happy right now." "Yeah, I'd like to keep my hands." Toshi leaned back. So how has it been? Being a foster kid now? Confusing. No idea how I'm meant to act if that makes sense. Union. ZZZ. Shoyuta, Zashi and Namuri had just left the house to give the kids some time to themselves. In all honesty, Shoyuta would have rather stayed home and napped. Stay in his room and pretend he left when really he'd be sleeping the whole time. But he did have something he should probably bring up to Zashi and Namuri. I found out something while reading the applicants for the Hero Course entrance exam this year. Zashi and Namuri stopped looking at the menu. Yeah, what was it? Zashi asked, obviously confused. Well, I was looking through the applicants when I saw that Shinso and Midoriya were both trying out for the exam. Oh, we could recommend them for the recommendation exam. Namuri smiled. I know I would have loved to have done that one. And with Shinsu's quirk it might work out better for him. At least it'd be easier than robots. Zashi said, looking thoughtful. Not sure if it'd be better for Midoriya to do the recommendation exam or the normal exam. I don't think his quirk would have an effect on robots. Doesn't hurt to ask. We could ask them when we get back with lunch. Degree asterisk. The front door opened again, with Yamada yelling out that they'd come back with lunch. It didn't take long for Izuku and Toshi to leave his room for the dining room. Oh, and we don't have to talk about it yet, but if you'd want we could recommend you for the recommendation exam. Yamada said nonchalantly. It took a minute for Izuku to process what was said. Wait, what? Izuku must be hearing things. There is no way he was just offered a chance at the recommendation exam. Or maybe it's a prank. All meant to give him hope only to take it away. But these people wouldn't do something like that. At least he'd hope so. I had the task of looking through all the entrance exam applicants. Izuku laughed internally, remembering when Aizawa had muted Nedzu. And I noticed that both of you were going to take it. We talked about it when we were getting lunch and decided to give you the choice. Just remember you don't have to take the recommendation exam, it is your decision. Nope, Izuku wasn't hearing things. We would say to take your time deciding, but the recommendation exam is only a month away and the cutoff for it is even sooner. Yamada explained while passing around plates of food. Everyone was silent for a few minutes. The three adults seemed to be waiting. Izuku looked over to Toshi, who looked the same as Izuku felt. Surprised. Unsure. In disbelief. Izuku was the first to break out of the state of disbelief. Toshi and I will talk about it after lunch if that's all right? He asked, still unsure on how he was meant to act now that these people were his foster parents / his friend's foster parents. That was the main trouble he'd been having. Blur knows coffee, drugs, and cockatoo. Blur was sassy to all three, dropping bits of possibly concerning information while also pranking them whenever possible. But Izuku wasn't meant to know them. Well, he was technically meant to know Present Mike and Midnight, but that wasn't the same. And he hadn't had an actual parental figure since he was 4. So overall, no idea whether he was meant to ask more questions or less. Of course you two can go talk about it after lunch, you don't have to ask that. Yamada was now his favorite person, helping Izuku's internal debate without even realizing it. So they ate lunch in silence. Mostly. Gribo was almost constantly being told off for trying to steal food off of each plate. Though Izuku and Toshi did sneak him a little, Izuku because he felt bad for the cat and Toshi because he was trying to win the cat's affection. From the way Gribo looked at Toshi, it had only helped him slightly. Pretty soon Izuku and Toshi were in his room, ready to finally think on what they'll choose. Real quick, I'm gonna look at the plans for the exams. Izuku said, already starting to mentally look for them. Some tension left Toshi's shoulders. I was just about to ask you about that, Zuku. It only took a minute for Izuku to find the right folder. He had gotten a text from Nedzu asking what he was doing, which he felt it'd probably be a good idea to tell him the truth. He was debating which exam to take. He doubted this would make Nedzu know who he was, if he didn't already know. He was Nedzu after all. Okay, so the recommendation exam will consist of a practical portion, an exam, and an interview. The practical portion is split into 2. The first part will be an obstacle course. It mentions that it's better for the examinee to get top 3 for the course but is not needed if they do amazing at the exam and interview, as long as people who did equal to them in the exam and interview didn't do better than them in the course. They're also gonna have a quirkless spar against the examinees. Based on the file, it won't change whether someone gets in, as it's to see where each examinee is hand-to-hand combat-wise. Izuku then changed over to the normal entrance exam file. The normal entrance exam only has the practical portion and the exam. It makes sense because of how many students take the normal entrance exam. The practical portion is against robots that are assigned a different number of villain points. The top 36 examinees of the practical portion will be accepted as long as they pass the exam itself. It also mentions that there can be additional points added for heroic actions, but the document doesn't mention what counts. Izuku was half thinking that Nedzu had removed that information after he'd told him what he was looking at. Well, it might not be a good idea for the both of us to take the recommendation exam. Toshi fell backwards onto the bed. I mean, there are only 4 spots available. True, but if we don't make the recommendation exam, we could always try out the normal entrance exam. Izuku pointed out. I think I'm going to do the recommendation exam. My quirk would be able to disable all of the robots at once, which would be unfair to the other examinees. Plus, then I'll feel like I've actually earned the place. Toshi nodded along. I think I'll go for the normal entrance exam then. Even though I could try both, I honestly don't want to take what may be the exact same exam twice. But I feel like I have to take the normal one. It seems so biased towards physical quirks. I want to get in to really earn my place. Toshi explained. Well, you'll definitely need to get stronger. Maybe also try practicing with a staff of some kind. Izuku suggested. Could I have one during the exam though? Yeah, as long as you register it ahead of time. Also try and prevent people from getting hurt. Toshi had a questioning look on his face. Well, if I could I would anyway, but why are you pointing that out? It could be counted towards the heroic actions points. I can't confirm anything, but a hero's job is to help people rather than just take down villains. So stopping others from getting hurt during the exam might get you some points. It's also the heroic thing to do regardless of the points though. The both of them took a moment to digest everything they just learned. During that time, Gribo had moved slightly closer to Toshi, though he didn't know as Gribo was on the floor compared to Toshi on the bed. We should go tell them now. Izuku stood up. The sooner we do, the sooner we can focus on training instead. Ugh, but that means moving. Toshi complained while moving his arm to cover his eyes. That combined with the afternoon sun escaping the curtains and perfectly landing on Toshi, it was adorable. Blush crept onto Izuku's face as he shook his head to get rid of the thought. If we don't do it now, we can start planning out how to train. Izuku argued. A sigh escaped Toshi. Fine, I guess I can get up. As Toshi got up, Gribo walked away, seemingly not yet ready to let Toshi know how close they were. The pair made their way to the kitchen. Finally decided? Kiyama asked as they walked into the room. Yeah, I'd like to do the recommendation exam. Izuku said it with as much confidence as he could. He didn't want them asking if he was sure, since he'd finally decided on something without taking hours debating the pros and cons of each option. And I'd like to do the normal entrance exam. On the surface, Toshi looked bored while telling them his choice. But Izuku could see all the anxiety Toshi had, likely also not wanting them questioning his decision. Aizawa seemed to also pick up on it. That's final then. If you do change your mind, I'd recommend doing so before the cutoff for the recommendation exam. I'll add you to the list for it, Midoriya. Chat name, League of No Dads. Teenage Dietbei. What even is your goal? Slow decay. Teenage Dietbei. Well, obviously this chat was called League of Villains, which was S's, so I changed it. But I got curious and tried to find out more about you guys. And all I've found is talk in the underground about killing All Might. Slow decay. My goal is to kill All Might. Teenage Dietbei. Why though? Slow decay. We are villains. Of course we want to kill All Might. Teenage Dietbei. Stain's a villain and he doesn't want to kill All Might. Slow decay. He's the fucking exception. Teenage Dietbei. Viver. But what's the reason to kill All Might other than being a villain? Slow decay. 'Cause he's the #1 hero? I don't fucking know. Teenage Dietbei. You don't even know why you want to kill him? Slow decay. Sensei wants him dead, so therefore he should be dead. Teenage Dietbei. Sensei? Slow decay. Teenage dietbait. At the Chapeltown rag, why do you want to kill All Might? Unsainted. You should not be disturbing Sensei. Teenage dietbait. I really don't care about that. At the Chapeltown rag. 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 Slow decay. WTFY? Teenage dietbait. Because I have the power of God and anime on my side. At the Chapeltown rag. At the Chapeltown rag. At the Chapeltown rag. Teenage dirtbag has been muted for 1 hour. Teenage dirtbag has been unmuted. Teenage dietbait. Can't stop me that easily. At the Chapeltown rag. At the Chapeltown rag. At the Chapeltown rag. At the Chapeltown rag. The Chapeltown rag. Teenage dietbait. Finally. Why do you want to kill All Might? The Chapeltown rag. It's an ancient rivalry. Over 200 years in the making. Teenage dietbait. First of all, I highly doubt it's 200 years in the making. Like that's when quirks were first discovered. You can't be telling me quirks made this rivalry a destiny. The Chapeltown rag. I wouldn't expect you to understand. The Chapeltown rag has been muted for 1 hour. Slow decay. What the actual fuck? You muted Sensei. Teenage dietbait. I was fucking talking. Get over it. Slow decay has been muted for 1 hour. Teenage dietbait. And for good measure. Unsainted has been muted for 1 hour. Teenage dietbait. As I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted. All Might's only like 50? AKA only been alive for a quarter of the rivalry, according to you. Also, I have never heard of the Chapeltown rag has been unmuted. Slow decay has been unmuted. Unsainted has been unmuted. Slow decay. Why TF did you mute me? Teenage dietbait. You also interrupted me. Which I'm not sure if you know. But that's quite rude. Slow decay. I fucking hate you. Teenage dietbait. Join the very, very long queue. Dude, you're not special. Slow decay. Who hurt you? Teenage dietbait. It's a trap. Slow decay. It's literally just me deciding to actually be nice for once? Teenage dietbait. Well, last time I answered that question, a detective decided to add it to a list of concerning things I've said, which now means he's starting another case on me. Slow decay. Another? Teenage dietbait. Apparently I'm an infamous hacker. Among the police anyway. So he was very confused when he found out I'm still a teen. Slow decay. Almost forgot about that. Still weird you are a teenager who wants to be a hero. And yet you are in a chat with villains. Teenage dietbait. Well, I'm a teenager who enjoys chaos and cause. Causing chaos asterisk. Slow decay. What kind of spelling is that? That asterisk. Teenage dietbait. Anyway, back to the original topic. At the Chapeltown rag, seriously though, what's the deal with you and All Might? The Chapeltown rag. I doubt you'd be able to understand. Teenage dietbait. Try me bitch. Slow decay. I am in awe of your stupidity. Teenage dietbait. Worthanks. Look, how about this? Just tell me what AFO stands for and I'll be back in an hour or less with everything. The Chapeltown rag. All for one. Teenage dietbait. Thanks. 40 minutes later. Teenage dietbait. God damn, you're over 200 years old? Who'd you get that quirk off of at the Chapeltown rag? Also, look, while you have a rivalry/nemesis for 200 years because of the quirk being passed down, I really don't think it counts to say your rivalry with All Might is 200 years old. More like 35 years old at this point, for against All Might. And it is so stupid to have your villain name the same as your quirk name. Seriously. It's so stupid it gives it away. I gotta go yell at someone real quick. Slow decay. I'm still processing how you got all of that in 40 minutes? Chat name. The pros and cons. G at coffee. Respectively, your hero name is one of the worst ones you could have chosen. Don't blame me. That was all at Cockatoo. Cockatoo. Well, ouch, thanks. I am about to throw something. Cockatoo. Is it that bad? Sad face. Please. Cockatoo. Sad face. E? His quirk is called erasure. His quirk is primarily in the eyes. His head. Cockatoo. That's why I thought of it? That gives away his quirk and how to deal with it. All you have to do is deal with the head with, say, a plastic bag. Cockatoo. To be fair, I was in high school then. This guy am this close to losing it. Cockatoo. How close? All that is preventing me is literal atoms. Anyway, I gotta go yell at other people now. Chat name, League of No Dads. Teenage Dietbay. I hath arrived once again after yelling at another person for their stupid name. Anyway, ignoring all the rivalry stuff. Why haven't you just stopped? Like, just stopped combating OFA stuff? And don't just answer with, "'cause I'm a villain" stuff, or I will find you and I will make your life a living hell. The Chapeltown Rag. You literally just found out I am a 200-plus-year-old supervillain who can give and take quirks. And your first reaction was to threaten me? Teenage Dietbay. Did I fucking stutter? I have, mostly, curbed that habit. The Chapeltown Rag. What would you have suggested I had done then? Teenage Dietbay. Start a family? That's what adults do apparently. And you are way past adult. The Chapeltown Rag. I'll have you know I tried that already. Teenage Dietbay. And? The Chapeltown Rag. Well, it was fine at first, until the kid got diagnosed quirkless. Teenage Dietbay. EW, you're quirkist. The Chapeltown Rag. Of course not. I'm a villain, not a bigot. Teenage Dietbay. Thank for. Continue with the story then. The Chapeltown Rag. Well, the child isn't quirkless, but does have the extra joint in the pinky toe. Couldn't explain that the child has a quirk without revealing myself, which would of course mean that I'd have to deal with All Might. And my wife for whatever reason blamed me for the child's supposed quirklessness. Which if he was actually quirkless could be plausible since I'm from the beginning of quirks, but she wouldn't have known that. So she divorced me and I haven't seen either of them since. Teenage Dietbay. Why didn't you take the kid? The Chapeltown Rag. First off, she fought hard to keep the child even though she obviously hated the supposed quirklessness. Probably to try and get at me. And the child was obsessed with heroes. Especially All Might. And I may be a villain that hates All Might. Teenage Dietbay. Well, his quirk at least, since if he didn't have OFA would you still have hated him? The Chapeltown Rag. Really depends on what type of hero he became. I can respect the ones that want proper change in society without the fame. Teenage Dietbay. Fair enough. The Chapeltown Rag. Also, the kid wanted to be a hero. Little difficult with a supervillain for a father. Teenage Dietbay. Have you tried to keep a connection with him at least? The Chapeltown Rag. I pay child support? Teenage Dietbay. As a person who has a lack of father in their life other than the child support I no longer receive, it really isn't enough. The Chapeltown Rag. Your mother doesn't get any child support? Teenage Dietbay. She probably still does. But I see none of it since she left. The Chapeltown Rag. She left you? But didn't you say you were still in school? Teenage Dietbay. Ages ago. And now I'm a month away from trying the entrance exam for my dream high school. The Chapeltown Rag. Well, that's not okay at all. Teenage Dietbay. As she was a bitch anyway. I was alone for a while, but then the detective was rude and started a case on my IRL self. Slow decay. IRL self? Teenage Dietbay. So funny story. My IRL self has been put into a nice, so far anyway, foster home thanks to the same detective that also knows me as Blur, who has also started a case on Blur. The Chapeltown Rag. Having aliases is complicated at times. Teenage Dietbay. Agreed. Wait, almost forgot to do a thing. Chat name, The Hacker and the Cop. Hacker. Hey, question. Are you completely done with the foster parents? No more interrogations and shit? But. Hacker. No reason whatsoever. I am completely innocent. I highly doubt that. But I am also too fucking tired for this. Chat name, League of No Dads. Teenage Dietbay. At Slow Decay, could you murder those people I mentioned a bit ago now? Slow Decay, I guess? Teenage Dietbay. Hadamai Twaguchi and Hidenori Twaguchi should be in the Mizudafu jail. Just kill them, don't hurt any of the officers there. I don't want you accidentally killing the ones I like. Slow decay. Fair enough then. 15 minutes later. Slow decay. The teenage dietbay. Thanks, laughing face. Chat name. The pros and cons. Not a cop. Blur, what the fuck did you do? Chat name. The pros and cons. Not a cop. Blur, what the fuck did you do? Blur. Nothing. Cover. What did you do, problem child? Blur. I, myself, have technically not done a thing. So therefore, nothing. Not a cop. Then you'll happily explain why there are 2 people dead in the Muzutafu jail. Blur. Are you accusing me of murder? I would never. I've already told you guys, I do not kill people. That is my least favorite thing to do. Cockatoo. Wait, does that mean that wasn't a bit? Blur. Cockatoo. Just, who did Blur kill? Blur. Betrayal. I have not even glanced in the direction of those complete and utter assholes. Not a cop. I never said who died, Blur. Blur. You see, I'd assume they are assholes considering the whole in jail aspect. Cover. That's a flimsy excuse and you know it. Blur. Do I? Cover. Anyway, who did Blur totally not murder? Not a cop. Hadamai Twaguchi and Hidenori Twaguchi. Drugs. The assholes that kicked my kid out? Just, your kid? Drugs. Right, you weren't here for that. Basically absolute shit. Foster parents kicked their foster kid out. Now I'm fostering the kid, who is now my child, though I don't want to force him to see me as his mum. Just, that's cool. Chat name. 2 brothers chilling in a hot tub. Blaster. She views me as her child? Bumblebee. That's a yay, right? Blaster. I think so? I honestly don't know at this point. I want it to be a yay. But on the other hand, trust issues. Bumblebee. It's okay to take your time. I mean, she literally said she isn't gonna force you to view her as your mum. Plus, technically you don't know about it. So unless she brings it up to you in person, it doesn't technically change anything. Blaster. Alright. Thanks, Suka. Chat name. The pros and cons. Not a cop. Either way, I know you were at least somewhat involved, Blur. Blur. Not a cop. You literally asked me not even an hour ago if said murdered people were still needed for, and I quote, interrogations and shit? Blur. Did I? Not a cop. I have it right here. Blur. Do you? Not a cop. WTF. Cover. He got rid of it, didn't he? Not a cop. Blur. Wait, I would never. Like, come on, does that really sound like me? Not a cop. Cover. Just. Drugs. Cockatoo. 100%. Unknown user has entered the chat. Unknown user. Unknown user has left the chat. Almighty leader. Blur. Goddamn, even Yunetsu? While this won't affect 3 people in the chat. Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Cockatoo. Chat name. Tension Ephesit. Uai Onuts. Greenie. Just found out I can use support equipment for my entrance exam. Pinky. Please. Asterisk degree asterisk. Blur. Izuku heard Hatsum call out as he approached the beach. He quickly spotted her next to a table filled with all different support items. Izuku had tested out Hatsum's support equipment a few times since they first met, though he hadn't been able to since Aizawa and Yamada started fostering him due to all the stress. And she was right. There was in fact a 50% chance of them blowing up. Luckily, nothing Izuku couldn't handle. It was like Kaken had prepared him for this. Hey Hatsum, now which items are you actually wanting me to use for the exam and which items did you shove in the pile to force me to try? Izuku made an unimpressed face while Hatsum started putting a few items back into her bag. Look, it wasn't too many. Just a dozen or so. Hatsum pouted. We can test those ones out another day. Especially since I have a feeling those ones are more likely to explode on me. Izuku watched as Hatsum put yet another support item in her bag. The part of the exam for recommendation students that I'll be using the support items for is an obstacle race. Oh cool, I brought the right ones. Wait, did you say recommendation? Are you taking the heroic recommendation entrance exam? Hatsum almost dropped the item that looked suspiciously like an actual bomb. Oh yeah. Izuku had realized he'd forgotten to tell her. I've got foster parents now and they're pro heroes, so they asked if I wanted to take the recommendation exam. A grin broke out onto Hatsum's face. Oh, this is perfect. You have to use some of my babies. Promote it to you however indirectly it may be before I even take my exam. Wouldn't they already know because of your parents' company? Izuku asked. Well, somewhat. They know of my parents' success but they are completely unaware of mine. And before you ask, yes they'd know it was me who had made your support items rather than my parents because they only sell to pro heroes. Hatsum grinned even wider. Not only will you then be showing off to UA itself but all the other examinees there as well. Alright, if anyone asks I'll tell them May Hatsum made them. Izuku rolled his eyes. Hatsum wouldn't need any help advertising her products. At least once they stopped exploding as much. Awesome. First I want you to test these boots out. Hatsum handed Izuku a pair of boots. They are meant to allow you to walk and run on any surface, say the walls or even ceilings. Izuku was hesitant to put them on. Not because of the possible explosion. But although he did in fact have a quirk, he for whatever reason also had all the extra body parts that quirkless people had. Like an extra joint in his pinky toe. Izuku internally sighed, resigned to the pain that was sure to come, and put the boots on. Except, the pain didn't come. The boots fitted perfectly. Izuku made eye contact with Hatsum, a look of shock on his face. Is something wrong with the shoes? Did I assume wrong? A confused look crossed Izuku's face. I had assumed that you must have at least an extra joint in your pinky toe due to your shoes. I know you have a quirk but people without the extra joint aren't comfortable in those kind of shoes. Oh, you were right about the extra joint. How did you know the type of shoe I am wearing? Not many people noticed the type of shoes he wore, with most of the quirkless population being the elderly. Not even Aizawa or Yamada had pointed it out yet, though there was still the chance they had in fact noticed and hadn't mentioned it. Well, my dad's quirkless so I've grown up with him having the same red shoes as you. But I knew you weren't quirkless so I just assumed that you had gotten some of the extra body parts quirkless people get. It all made sense. Wait, I never told you about my quirk though. How did you know I had one even though I had these shoes? Izuku had not told Hatsum his quirk yet. He was planning to, but each time he'd forget either because a support item was just so cool or he'd have to leave earlier than expected to deal with a burn from an explosion much bigger than planned. Oh well, my quirk allows me to see smaller details by basically zooming in on them. Your eyes have static in them. I have no idea what your quirk does but I know it must involve technology somehow because of the static. They do. Izuku took his phone out and really zoomed in on his eyes. He did in fact have static in them. Interesting. What is your quirk anyway? Well, I can access the internet with my mind. Hatsum's eyes widened. I can also teleport into it and through it. So if I set it up right I can teleport home through my computer. Though I can't randomly teleport out of strangers' devices. Oh, this is perfect. I have never been able to work with a technology quirk this powerful before. I have so many ideas right now. Hatsum grabbed a notebook out of seemingly nowhere. Tell me absolutely everything about your quirk. After an hour Hatsum was done asking questions about Izuku's quirk. Really meaning she'd gotten to the questions that Izuku himself had no idea about. They did promise to start testing it all out once they got into UA though. Now we can finally test out the boots. Hatsum pulled Izuku over to a fridge. Now all you have to do is press this red button here to activate it. Once it's activated try walking up the fridge. Izuku turned the boots on, thankful they didn't explode on him, and started walking up the fridge, and it worked. Thus, my babies work. Izuku walked back down the fridge before turning the boots back off. This will be perfect for the obstacle course you'll have to do. How many can you have in total? Let me check real quick. Izuku looked through the files again. I can have a maximum of 2 items. Perfect. You'll take the boots and one other thing. Hatsum rushed over to the table to grab even more support equipment. After testing out all the support items Hatsum had brought today, it was decided Izuku would only use the boots. Half of the support items likely wouldn't work well for the obstacle course and the other half that might have worked, well, exploded. Thankfully the burns were pretty small, only 1st degree. Next time we test out my babies I should have a prototype ready. Izuku and Hatsum had talked about creating small cubes that could be thrown or stuck to a wall, connected to the internet for Izuku to use with his hero costume. though a few would be saved for his day-to-day use to make life easier. Maybe once he revealed the teleporting aspect to Aizawa and Yamada. Thanks Hatsum. I can't wait to test them out. Izuku picked up the case holding his new boots. Since the boots had not in fact blown up the whole time, it was deemed safe to bring back home. According to Hatsum anyway. Oh, also at some point later today, do you want to be added to this group chat? It has pro heroes in it. You can decide whether you reveal who you are, but I haven't told them who I am or what I look like. Still called blur in it. You mean you can shove me into a group chat full of pros? And it's up to me to decide if I show them all my babies? Yes. Hatsum grabbed her comically large bag of support items. I'll talk to you later, Blur. And well, Izuku could do all that chaos making on his walk back. Chat name, the pros and cons. Blur. I hath decided to add another person because I can. Fair warning, she will likely talk about her babies. They aren't actual children. It's her inventions. Blur added an unknown user to the chat. Blur has changed unknown user's name to Wheeljack. Oh, I am so excited. Which heroes are in this chat? I was promised heroes to shove my babies at. Covet. Yet another headache. Blur. Hey, Jazz didn't give you a headache. Covet. And? Blur has muted coffee for 1 hour. Drugs. Blur. Good. Cockatoo. WHYD my husband start cussing out Blur? No. Blur. I fear nothing. Almighty leader. Smiley face. Blur. I fear one thing and that thing is Nedzu. Nedzu is here. Blur. At coffee is Eraserhead. At drugs is Midnight. At speed is Ingenium. At cockatoo is Present Mike. And finally at not a cop is Detective Tsukachi. Before you say a thing, while it says he isn't a cop. He's a liar. So 5 pro heroes. And a detective. That I can give my babies to. Blur. Drugs. Wait, how old is it, Wheeljack? Blur. About the same age as me. Cockatoo. And do you know how the support items turn out? If you are asking if they explode, explosions are part of the process. Drugs. We found my Jima's problem child. Blur. I am also confusion. Drugs. A couple months ago my Jima, power loader, had the sudden sense that he'd get a problem child in his next class like Sho does. And now we found the most likely candidate. Blur. Yeah, 100%. Well, I GTG now. But first, coffee has been unmuted. Blur. I didn't want to be interrupted. When people say, Puma, I funny red versus blue, Halo funny humor. Acceptable. Why weren't you like that with me? Blur. Simple. You did not provide a meme. Asterisk degree asterisk. Izuku finally got home back to Aizawa and Yamada's place. How was hanging out with your Friday? Oh no, what happened? Yamada asked while looking at Izuku's arms. The arms covered with burns. Oh well, my friend and I were testing out some of the support items she made. A few didn't go all that well. Don't worry though, we treated them at her place. Izuku explained, realizing how suspicious it was that Blur had just added a friend who was into creating support items just before Izuku got home, with burns all over his arms from support items. On a better note, I now have these cool boots for the entrance exam. Yamada immediately started asking him about the boots, hopefully not making the connection between Izuku and Blur. A few days later, Aizawa had promised to help Toshi and him train in the, albeit little, time before their respective entrance exams. We're going to start off with a physical assessment so I can see where you're both at. Afterwards we will focus on sparring. Any questions? Aizawa looked at the two of them. Let's get started then. The physical assessment wasn't actually all too bad. He did much better than he thought he would have. Especially compared to the last time he had done such assessment back at Aldra. You two can take a 5-minute break while I set up the sparring mats. Drink water, Aizawa said while throwing water bottles at them. Afterwards we'll spar. The first set will be to see where you are and where you need to improve. After I am confident in your abilities, we will end with you sparing each other. Aizawa left the room as both boys started drinking the water thrown at them. Hey Toshi, have you practiced any sparring? Izuku asked while screwing the lid back onto his water bottle. Somewhat. I haven't practiced with anyone, but I have tried learning some moves. Toshi took a sip of his water. What about you? Pretty much the same. Though my quirk made it easier to learn since I don't need to keep looking over at a phone. Hey, would your quirk be useful when you have a song stuck in your head? Since you could just start playing another one instead. Guesses always. No, it's even worse honestly. I try to start another song but it never works. The song stuck in my head just keeps playing louder no matter how hard I try to get rid of it. Toshi burst out in laughter, causing a soft smile to find its way onto Izuku's face. He had no idea why he had started smiling. The only thing he could come up with was how happy he must feel that his best friend is finally having the joy he's missed from the awful foster parents from his past. Aizawa re-entered the room with the sparring mats. It'd be a good idea to keep drinking that water. You'll both be facing off against me very soon. Aizawa explained with a gremlin-like smile on his face. Suddenly, Izuku was unsure of his choice to train with Aizawa. Union. ZZZ. Shoyuta hid a small smile behind his capture weapon. While neither child had professional training yet, both had a good basis of hand-to-hand combat. Though Midoriya had a better stance, Shinso wasn't too far behind. A plan was already forming in his mind on how he'd train them. Midoriya would need to focus on speed and hand-to-hand combat, whereas Shinso, while also focusing on speed, would need to focus more on weapon training. A bow would work well. For the rest of the training session though, he'd get the both of them to run the obstacle course. *degree***. Note to self, do not under any circumstances get on Aizawa's bad side. Izuku felt like he was going to collapse. For the past week he had been running the same obstacle course with Toshi every morning. Then they'd get to have a 3-hour break for resting and lunch before having to go back to practice sparring with Aizawa. Izuku doing so with hand-to-hand while Toshi had to with a bow. Obviously this would help with both of their entrance exams, but God did Izuku wish it weren't this exhausting. He had barely any energy left for being a chaos gremlin. It was the worst. And he still had 2 weeks until his exam. Izuku was getting exhausted just thinking about it. Izuku honestly just wanted to skip to the exam. Don't get him wrong, he was very grateful that Aizawa was helping him and Toshi. But even the thought of running that obstacle course straight out of hell was draining. But he had to get out of bed at some point. Izuku walked into the kitchen while internally debating what to eat. Before he could really decide, he had looked over to Aizawa. "We aren't doing any training today," Aizawa said while pouring a cup of coffee. "It's important to rest your muscles. So for the next 3 days you will have time to yourself. I recommend studying for the exam portion. Afterwards we will keep training how we were before. 3 days before your exam you'll stop both for the rest and to have those last 3 days to study again." Izuku was now very happy Aizawa had offered to train him. Chat name, the pros and cons. At everyone wish us all luck for the exams that we shall have to conquer for maximum chaos. Just carrot but less dramatic. I am not dramatic. Sure you aren't. I can't wait to show all my babies off. And then after I get in, I will have whole days dedicated to my babies. Cockatoo. You will still have to go through the basic safety lessons. I won't. Drugs. I already have all of the manuals memorized. I have since I was 7. I also already have my provisionary support item making license. Drugs. Rip power loader. I'm sure it won't be that bad. Right? Can confirm. It will in fact be that bad. I would recommend buying some of that expensive alcohol you lot talk about for power loader. If he cannot handle my babies, then there should be a room dedicated for me to do as I please. Exactly. Anyway, wish us luck. But why? You know why? How very dare you? I have no idea why you would not want to wish me luck on getting into my dream school. Cockatoo. Good luck you 3. Good luck at Jazz and at Wheeljet. Sad face. Fine. Minimal luck. That's better than nothing, so I'll take it. Drugs. Good luck. Wait, did show just wish blur luck? Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Cockatoo. Good luck kids, I'm leaving the country. Not a cop. Also wishing you good luck. And myself that I can escape Nem in time. Cockatoo has been muted for 1 hour. Speed has been muted for 1 hour. Not a cop has been muted for 1 hour. Preemptive muting so I don't get distracted while doing the things for the exam stuff. Izuku was nervous. Today was the day he would be taking the entrance exam for his dream school. Not only that, but he was also taking the recommendation exam, having had Aizawa recommend him. And while Aizawa hadn't mentioned anything about it being important he passed, Izuku now felt like he had to pass the exam or he'd be ruining Aizawa's reputation. Granted, the only reputation he has is among heroes and UA students, but still, that wasn't even touching on the anxiety Izuku was getting just thinking about how disappointed Aizawa might be if he failed. Overall, Izuku was not mentally ready for the exam whatsoever. There was only one thing he could do to prepare. Chat name, the pros and cons. Cockatoo. What's wrong? Brain. Not a cup. Adding it to the list. Not the time for that. What happened? My brain is being rude. Make it stop, sad face. What are you worried about? Letting someone down BC of the entrance exams happening soon. You know there are many ways to get into the UA hero course. Yeah, but brain. Look, if whoever you're talking about is disappointed in you for not getting in on the first try, then maybe you should stop caring about their opinion. Obviously, they don't realize how difficult the heroic exam is, especially depending on your quirk, since unfortunately the HPSC pushes the entrance exams to be focused on physical quirks. Do your best. If said person has any logic in them, then they wouldn't be disappointed if you somehow didn't get in first go. Although you're a pain in the ass, I know you'll get in. Thanks. Izuku arrived at the exam early. Since Aizawa was a teacher at UA, he had to be there to help judge the practical portion. Likely the quirkless sparring. Remember kid, do your best but don't stress. I'm sure you'll get in. And it's not the end of the world if you don't. You still have the normal entrance exam and the sports festivals if needed, though I highly doubt you'll need them. Aizawa told him, warming Izuku's heart. Over the last couple of weeks Izuku's found out how much of a softie Aizawa is. I will Aizawa. See you after the exam. Izuku could tell Aizawa was hiding a smile behind his capture weapon. See you later, kid. With that, Aizawa left. Izuku looked around, not really knowing what to do. He didn't know anyone, though he hadn't expected to. Most here would be related to a hero, or have families who invest both time and money into the HPSC. So he decided to go lean against a wall and wait until the exam started. Maybe annoy the villains. Or try to figure out the other people's quirks. Before Izuku could decide, two people started walking up to him. One with long black hair, who seemed to be dragging over the other, who had half red, half white hair. Perfectly split down the middle. Hello, I'm Momo Yaoyorozu, and this is Shoto Todoroki. Who might you be? Yaoyorozu asked, slightly confusing Izuku. He was not expecting anyone to walk up to him. Oh, I'm Izuku Midoriya. Izuku stuttered a little at the end, though he wasn't all too upset at that. It was a huge improvement from how he was months ago. Who recommended you for this exam, Midoriya? Izuku saw in the corner of his eye two others walking over towards them. I'm not sure if you'd know of him, but Eraserhead did. What about you guys? Well, my cousin is Fat Gum. Yaoyorozu explained. She looked over at Todoroki expectantly. What about you? Izuku asked, now looking at Todoroki. My father Endeavor. Todoroki said, voice devoid of emotion. That was concerning. He'd have to look into that later. Izuku internally groaned. He was turning into Tsukachi. Finally, one of the two examinees who had been walking up to them spoke. Your Endeavor's kid? Now that the attention was off Izuku, he could properly look at the two examinees. The one who had spoken was tall, and honestly too loud. The other one had wavy green hair, though it was darker than Izuku's. Why? Todoroki turned towards the loud one, with what seemed like a blank stare. Though if Izuku looked a little bit closer, he could tell Todoroki was uncomfortable. He definitely had to look more into Endeavor. I don't mean to be rude, but your father is an asshole. The loud one said bluntly. I hope you are not like him. I refuse to be like my father. Izuku saw as the anger started breaking through Todoroki's blank expression. I'd hope so. He truly is an awful person. The loud one then turned to the rest of the group. I'm Inesa Yorashi. You can call me Inesa. I'm Momo Yaoyorozu, and this is Izuku Midoriya. Izuku has now decided Yaoyorozu is his favorite person. And I'm Setsuna Tokage. They all started talking, Izuku half listening in. Inasa mentioned how his parents had told him someone had anonymously recommended him, while Tokage was recommended by her cousin Edshot. Izuku saw a short kid with purple balls for hair? Something to do with his quirk for sure. He was looking creepily at some of the other examinees. Izuku was building up the courage to go over there and have a conversation with him when what looked to be Aizawa's scarf shot out of the vent. It quickly wrapped around the purple pervert before pulling him into the vent the scarf had come out of. Izuku coughed to cover up his laughter. Quickly using his quirk, Izuku looked through the cameras. And sure enough, Aizawa had a quirk-infused glare aimed right at the purple pervert. Serves him right, Izuku thought to himself. And based on the sudden crying, Aizawa has likely banned him from UA. Thank God there was no chance of having to deal with him if Izuku got into UA. He might have broken some laws, but so far he hasn't technically murdered anyone, and he'd like to keep it that way. For now at least. Probably wouldn't be all that great to break that law while in hero school. Am I a mouse? A dog? A bear? More importantly, I'm the principal of UA. The door Izuku had been occasionally looking at had opened wide to reveal Nezu. Izuku was both excited and terrified. Mainly because he did not want Nezu to know he was Blur. Thank you all for being here today. When you go through that door. Nezu gestured to the door on their left. You will be instructed to wear quirk-canceling bracelets to prevent cheating on your written exam with quirks. If you are caught trying to cheat, you will be immediately banned from UA. After you finish your written exam, a staff member will take the quirk-canceling bracelet and you will be instructed to go to the locker rooms to change into a gym-type uniform before coming back here to wait for the physical portion. Good luck to all. Nezu finished, smiling a little too wide. Izuku was now pretty thankful he had actually liked learning instead of relying on his quirk. It was interesting not being able to use his quirk. He hadn't really noticed it before, but he had a constant, static-type noise in his mind that only came back once the quirk-canceling bracelet was off. From what Izuku could tell, he was one of the first to complete the written exam. He saw some empty seats as he left the room, though he was the only one in the locker rooms. Entering the waiting room again, he saw Yaoyorozu and Inasa talking. Izuku walked over to them, though didn't join their conversation, content on just listening. It didn't take long for Todoroki and Tokage to join them, being followed by what seemed like the majority of the examinees. Tokage joined Yaoyorozu and Inasa's conversation while Todoroki just listened in like Izuku. Izuku was looking around, trying to figure out all the visible quirks, when suddenly someone tapped his arm, seemingly trying to get his attention. Izuku turned around to look at whoever decided he was someone they wanted to talk to. The person had neat blonde hair with blue eyes. He looked familiar, though he couldn't quite place it. I'm Nito Minoma. Minoma introduced himself. It clicked. The Minomas were one of the families that funded the HPSC. They also designed and distributed most of the hero merch, which earned them an insane amount of money. While yes, the hero themselves got part of the money earned, only about 20% actually went to the hero. The other 80% was split between the HPSC and the Minoma family. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Izuku almost forgot that when someone introduced themselves that it was pretty important that he also introduced himself. Before Minoma could continue talking, Nezu entered the room, explaining what would happen for the physical exam. They'd each be assigned a random letter for which group they would be in for the obstacle course. Afterwards, they'd get another short break before being randomly assigned a partner for quirkless sparring, which they'd once again be wearing the quirk-canceling bracelets for. After all that, they'd each be interviewed by Nezu. If Izuku was being honest, the interview with Nezu was what he was the most worried about. Partly due to him being Blur. The other part, though, was his record. Aldera blamed him for literally everything they could, especially to keep the star students' records clean. He couldn't think of that right now. He had an exam to complete. Izuku learned he would be a part of the last group to run the obstacle course. And while he could have done some stretches to prepare for it, Izuku decided to watch the other groups do it through the cameras. Figuring out how to traverse the obstacle course the quickest will probably be more helpful than overstretching. He could probably get some quick stretches in during the second last group's race anyway. Izuku didn't really recognize anyone in the first group. He was trying to figure out which examinee was related to which hero, and how well they could use their quirks. One of the examinees seemed to have really poor control, or at least poor planning. His quirk seemed to create lasers out of his belly button. But instead of waiting for a wall to launch himself up or for a stretch of obstacle-free running, he just used his quirk, which only pushed him into all the obstacles. That must hurt. Then Izuku moved his attention to an examinee with yellow hair with a black lightning streak in it. Might be related to Pro Hero Offline, especially since he looks to have an electric quirk. It was cool to see his quirk in use. The examinee was sending out small bits of electricity at the other examinee's feet to slow them down. The electric examinee got first place in the race, with the laser examinee getting last. Unfortunate, but maybe this would help that laser examinee learn that he needs to plan out his quirk rather than just using it. The second group included Monoma. Izuku was really excited to see what his quirk was, as the Monoma family had kept their quirks as secret as one can. And Izuku didn't really have much of a reason to look through the quirk registry for it. As soon as they were told to go, Monoma disappeared. No, that's not right. Izuku looked around. No one was looking at him. He disappeared into the internet. Yep, he was right. Monoma was in the internet. Are you able to copy quirks? Izuku asked, getting Monoma's attention. It was the only explanation for Monoma now entering the internet just like Izuku did. Yes, now please tell me how I get out of this. There was clear panic on Monoma's face. To be fair, being in the internet for the first time was pretty scary. Well, the best way to describe it is to imagine where you were before using the quirk. Izuku tried explaining. He'd been using the quirk for so long it was second nature, the teleporting aspect anyway. Getting over firewalls still took a while. One moment Monoma was there, the next moment he was gone. Looking at the cameras showed Monoma back on the obstacle course, now using the laser examinee's quirk. Though much better because he was stopping it before he hit obstacles. Izuku checked the cameras for the waiting room he was in. No one was looking where he was before helping Monoma, so he teleported back. Sure, the cameras could see it, and there was a chance someone noticed him disappear only to reappear, but hopefully they wouldn't think too hard on it. He wanted to keep the teleporting aspect of his quirk a secret for as long as he could. Or at least until he got those support items from Hatsum. Just teleporting into the internet wasn't always useful in a fight. It'd help with dodging, but if the villain caught on, and Izuku was just teleporting back to the same spot he could be taken down pretty quickly. Looking back through the cameras, Izuku watched as Monoma overtook first place. Izuku mentally let out a sigh of relief. He would have felt really bad if Monoma had gotten last place all because he'd copied Izuku's quirk without knowing how it worked. The next group to go looked like it was missing a student. Izuku looked closer. No, they weren't missing a student. Now actually looking, he saw a floating outfit. The examinee must have an invisibility quirk. Though Izuku was unsure how useful it would be, both Todoroki and Inesa were in the group. Immediately Izuku saw two things happen. Inesa lifted himself off the ground, some kind of wind quirk, while Todoroki froze the other examinee's feet to the floor. Inesa had obviously dodged this, being in the sky and all. Surprisingly, so did the invisible examinee. Seemed as though Todoroki didn't notice them. By the time other examinees freed themselves from the ice, Todoroki, Inesa, and the invisible examinee were all across the line. Izuku didn't pay much attention to the next group, mainly focusing on stretching right. It'd be really bad luck if he didn't stretch right. He saw that Tokage was in that group. Her quirk was really interesting, allowing her to split her body into different segments, still being controlled by her. She sent out a couple of fingers, which crossed the finish line first. Finally, it was Izuku's turn to go. He had a good idea on what each obstacle was, and what the quickest way to get past them were. He looked at who else would be in his group. Yaoyorozu was the only one there he knew. Looking past her, Izuku noticed one examinee whose head looked like a bird's head. Maybe related to Hawks. Or at least Hawks was the most likely to have recommended him. Izuku looked back to the course in front of him. The first obstacle was a maze, obviously trying to get all the examinees lost. It then led into a short open field. They would then climb up a wall only to have to run back down, while trying to dodge all the bumps and holes in the ground. Izuku had specifically analyzed this part, knowing exactly where to run to avoid it all. Finally, they would have to parkour across the concrete pillars in the water. As soon as they were told to go, Izuku ran. He was able to use the cameras to know where the path was. From what he could tell, he was the first one out, though he wasn't paying much attention to the others. There wasn't much Izuku could do to run faster. Yaoyorozu passed him on a bike, something Izuku had not been expecting. Yaoyorozu obviously reached the wall first, though she had paused. Looking closer, Izuku could see a grappling hook being made from her arm. Some kind of creation quirk. Izuku reached the wall soon after, though he only slowed down. As soon as his boots made contact with the wall, he was back to running. He is very thankful Hatsum had made him these boots. He isn't sure what he would have done if he didn't have them. Izuku only slowed down slightly when he reached the top. Once he was sure the boots were connected to the proper floor again, he got to the downward run. One of his favorite aspects of his quirk was being able to put internet files over his vision, allowing him to completely dodge all the bumps and holes. Behind him, he could hear some people falling over, who he felt bad for but ultimately couldn't do anything for. Even if they followed him, they'd have to step in the exact places he did to follow the path right. Finally, Izuku was nearing the end. A few weeks ago he would have dreaded the parkour before the finish line. But after running Aizawa's course straight out of hell, he was honestly relieved. Water was his only worry. Izuku shuddered at the thought of those damn electrified floors. There was a moment when Izuku almost slipped and fell in, but he had quickly regained his balance. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief when he was announced first place. 13 directed him to the next waiting room, which was really just the sparring room they'd be using anyway. Once everyone from his group finished the obstacle course, they were explained the rules for the spar. As already said, it would be quirkless and they'd be wearing the quirk-canceling bracelets again. The goal was to either push their opponent out of bounds or to pin them to the ground for 5 seconds. They should avoid unnecessary hits. They would be randomly assigned into pairs. Izuku looked for his name. He'd be versing Kaminari, though he wasn't really sure which of the other examinees they were. Luckily, Izuku wouldn't have to wait long, as he was one of the first to spar. Turns out it was the examinee with the electric quirk. They didn't even have time to talk before Cementos told them to start. Izuku immediately rushed towards Kaminari, having it built into him to try and catch his opponent by surprise. So far he hasn't been able to do so to Aizawa. But luck must have been on his side today as he tackled Kaminari to the floor. Kaminari had a look of shock on his face, obviously not expecting Izuku to tackle him. It was kinda cute. Izuku's thought was cut off as Kaminari pushed him off. Both quickly got back onto their feet, Izuku once again rushing towards Kaminari. They were sparring for a couple of minutes before Izuku was able to finally push Kaminari out of the ring. "Wow man, you're really good." Kaminari spoke as Izuku helped him up. "Oh, thanks." Izuku had not been expecting Kaminari to talk to him, let alone compliment him. "You seem really cool, can I have your number?" Kaminari paused. "You can say no, I don't want to make you feel like you have to dash." "Sure." Izuku interrupted. Kaminari sent Izuku a small smile. "Thanks dude." They both exchanged numbers before going to the final waiting room. It didn't take long for Izuku to be called into the room for his interview. "Hello Izuku Midoriya." Netsu started, staring at Izuku as though he was looking into his soul. "Or would you prefer Blur?" "Oh fuck." Netsu hadn't expected Aizawa to have recommended anyone for UA. Though it made sense, as who he recommended was now his foster child. Netsu also knew Blur's identity. Aizawa did not. Cackling was heard throughout the building when Netsu found out Aizawa had, unintentionally, recommended Blur to UA. Though, that did mean that Netsu could meet Blur earlier than he thought he would have. He knew he would be meeting Blur at some point, given that he passed at least the general recommendation exam, as Blur was planning on going to UA. Though it would have been more stressful for Blur if Netsu had randomly called him into his office after getting into UA. This way Netsu would be able to talk to Blur with less of the stress. It would still be stressful on Blur's part, as he was being interviewed for the UA recommendation exam, though unless Blur wasn't fit to be a hero or someone else was far more fit, Netsu already planned to accept Blur through said exam. The irony of Aizawa recommending his foster child only to, technically, be the reason Blur got into UA, was something Nezu could not pass up. It was finally time for their interview, Nezu specifically planning for Blur's quirkless spars to be one of the firsts. Blur walked in the room looking nervous. Likely due to this being the interview that may not allow him into his dream school, though Nezu also suspected that Blur was anxious over whether or not he knew. Hello Izuku Midoriya. Might as well stop Blur from guessing whether or not he knew. Or would you prefer Blur? Asterisk degree asterisk. Oh fuck. Izuku said without even thinking. No dash. Then Nezu started cackling. Izuku had many regrets. And this was now one of them. He was going to move into the internet itself. I apologize, I hadn't expected such a reaction. Nezu had finally stopped cackling. How long have you known who I was? Did Nezu only find out once Aizawa started fostering him, or had Nezu known before that? Or even did he only find out after Izuku was recommended for UA? Practically since the beginning. Nezu took a sip of his tea. It took a moment to realize why I hadn't been able to track your location until after you had logged off. I must say that teleportation aspect of your quirk is quite interesting. Izuku had no idea how to respond. Really, how are you meant to respond when one of, if not the smartest, being in existence is the one who knows about your hacker self and is also the one who decides whether or not you go to your dream school? Okay, but how did you find out? Izuku finally settled on saying. As I said, I tracked down your location after you had logged off. Though I could have checked the tenant list of that apartment, I chose not to, if only for the challenge. A few weeks later your quirk status had been changed, which aligned with my theory of how you got into the chat. Nezu explained, answering Izuku's initial question, now though giving him a new one. How did you know it was a quirk? The police, while of course having checked the quirk database at the beginning, thought he was just a hacker. Oh, that was very simple. I added a feature into the chat that meant that I had a say in who left the chat. So when you tried to leave or get kicked out, I denied it. The security of the chat is slightly lower than UA itself. And since you hacked into UA, but couldn't hack your way out of the chat, the logical conclusion was a quirk at play instead. Nezu took another sip of his tea. Would you like some tea? Sure. Izuku liked tea, though he hadn't expected to be offered any. Soon enough there was a cup in front of Izuku. What are the limits of your quirk? Your file only mentions the access to the internet via your mind, and we both know your quirk does so much more than that. Nezu asked. For example, do you know if you could teleport others into the internet with you? Izuku thought for a moment. He hadn't when that villain attacked him practically a year ago. Though he hadn't been trying to bring the villain with him. I'm not entirely sure. Would you be willing to test it out right now? I am very interested in knowing. Nezu was already standing up. What about the interview? Izuku wasn't opposed to exploring his quirk, though he would want to make sure his interview actually happened. He'd hate to miss out on UA because he was meant to ask about the interview rather than immediately accept testing out his quirk. You don't need the interview as I already know you from the chat, as the interview itself is to ensure only those who have true heroic intent enter through the recommendation exam. Nezu explained. Although you have done a few, less than legal things, you haven't done anything with malicious intent. I had already planned to accept you into UA, as long as you pass the written exam. Really? I would have thought the illegal quirk use might be a problem. At this point Izuku figured he could be himself, being easier to do so since he had talked with Nezu already because of the chat. If you had used your quirk for evil, then it would have. But as far as I'm aware you've only used it for chaos, which if I had such a quirk would do as well. A smile broke out onto Nezu's face, though Izuku no longer felt fear seeing it. Now, let's talk more about your quirk, specifically testing if you could take me into the internet. Nezu lifted a hand, paw, towards Izuku. And so Izuku took it. This time when teleporting into the internet, he tried to focus on bringing Nezu with him. He closed his eyes before teleporting in. Opening his eyes showed that Izuku was alone in the internet. Unfortunate, though he had half expected it. So he quickly teleported back out of the internet. Ah, that's unfortunate. Though maybe with more practice you could eventually bring others. Nezu said as Izuku turned to look at him. Nezu only looked slightly disappointed, though Izuku knew it wasn't at him, rather the quirk not allowing him to teleport others into the internet. At least not yet. How do firewalls work with your quirk? Well, for me they are literal walls. The higher the security, the higher the wall. Izuku thought back to UA's firewall. The firewall for UA has been the biggest one I've come across. How did you get over it? Nedzu had moved back to his seat, making another cup of tea in the process. Well, all things in the internet become physical for me, so I just created a bunch of sticky notes and climbed up them. Because with a quirk like Izuku's it truly was that easy. Nedzu had burst out in laughter at that. Though luckily I only have to do it once, since my quirk does the equivalent of saving a password for the firewall even when the security is updated. That would be quite helpful, and would explain how you stayed in the UA system even after I updated the security. Nedzu paused, seemingly deep in thought. Izuku wasn't sure whether or not he should be terrified. Finally, Nedzu spoke again. How would you feel if I allowed you to control the 0 pointers in this year's regular entrance exam? A chaotic smile spread across both Izuku and Nedzu's faces. Chat name, UA staff. Record. There has been a change to the regular exam. Loud one. Record. I have decided to have someone else control the 0 pointers. Cadbury. Who? Blur. Laughing face. Loud one. Oh no. Cadbury. Those poor future students. Main Kun. At Rat God I quit. Record. No smiley face. Blur. You're stuck with me, laughing face. Nurse Joy. As long as you won't purposely hurt the examinees, I'm fine with it. Blur. I would never purposely hurt someone. Main Kun. X to doubt. Loud one. What do you mean show? Blur. Unacceptable. Loud one has been muted for 1 hour. Cadbury. It wasn't me this time. Main Kun. Are you sure about that? Cadbury has been muted for 1 hour. Chat name. The pros and cons. Drugs. Not muted here, fucker. Cockatoo. Wait, show don't. Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Cockatoo. What the fuck show? It wasn't me. Blur. I did it for the funny. Cockatoo. Fucking run. Asterisk degree asterisk. It only took a couple of days for Izuku to get his letter to tell him whether or not he got in. He wasn't all that worried. Nedzu had said Izuku would be getting in. There was still that seed of doubt that Nedzu was lying to him. Izuku opened the letter with Toshi in the room, the adults being in the kitchen to let Izuku find out himself and choose when to tell them. So, did you get in? Toshi asked, moving closer to Izuku, their hands brushing up against each other. Yeah. Izuku smiled. He was so excited to tell the chat. If he told the chat now, they'd find out he got recommended. Considering they knew he would be in Aizawa's class, they'd all find out immediately if he told them. You good, Aizu? Izuku looked at Toshi, who now had a frown on his face. Yeah, I'm fine. Just realized I can't tell the chat about this yet. He could once Toshi gets his result. I know I can tell them later, but still. You technically can't tell them. A smirk crossed Toshi's face. After you tell Aizawa and Yamada, you, as Blur, could congratulate their child for getting in. Toshi, you are an evil genius. Izuku walked out to the kitchen. Hey kiddo, did you get in? Yamada was the first to notice Izuku and Toshi enter the kitchen. Yeah, I did. Izuku smiled. I knew you could do it. Yamada yelled. Their ears were saved by Aizawa's quirk. Good job, kid. A small smile was on Aizawa's face. How do you want to celebrate? He hadn't thought about that. Could I go out with some of my friends? Then could we have katsudon for dinner? Sounds good, kid. You have your phone? Izuku pulled his phone out, deciding not to mention he didn't really need it. Keep it with you and be back by 5 p.m., okay? Thanks, Aizawa. Chat name, League of No Dads. Teenage Dietbei. I did a thing. Slow decay. Teenage Dietbei. I got into my dream school. Him be a hero. Slow decay. W. Teenage Dietbei. Like, come on. I tried really hard on it, sad face. Slow decay. But you are planning on being a hero. W. Teenage Dietbei. We already went over this. I'm planning on being one of the good ones. Slow decay. But UD still arrest me. Teenage Dietbei. It depends on what you're doing / what you've done. Slow decay. I forgot how morally gray you are. Teenage dietbe. Oh, that reminds me. What is a general overview of what you look like? Slow decay. Teenage dietbe. Well, if I am to see someone like you while training to be a hero / after becoming a hero, unless you're doing something that crosses my morals, I want to know so I don't hurt you. Slow decay. Like blue hair. Teenage dietbe. And I remember your name being Shigaraki from before I gave these amazing nicknames. Slow decay. Well, how will you really confirm it's me? Teenage dietbe. I will try to recreate this meme. https://u.be/3gk0esjhxq?markusi=sin ttnmg8ghind5bz89. Slow decay. You know if there are other heroes there you'll look insane? Teenage dietbe. You're assuming they don't already know I am. Slow decay. Chat name. The pros and cons. Cockatoo. I'm having a proud dad moment. Yeah. Cockatoo. Midoriya got into UA. Drugs. Oh, that's amazing. How are you celebrating? Cockatoo. Well, Midoriya's going out with friends Arin, but when he gets home we will be having katsudon for dinner. Katsudon is the best. Cockatoo. Yeah, it's a really good choice. Not a cup. Congrats to him. I'm proud of Midoriya. Drugs. Damn, Midoriya must done really well. Yeah. Drugs. It takes a lot to get Sho to admit he's proud. Jazz is online. Wheeljack is online. I am hiding. I am fear. Cockatoo. What's happened? Blur has a weapon. At Wheeljack gave it to him. Drugs. WTF. This is the first time Eve met Wheeljack and I am regret. It's Fian. Does he still have it? Yes. He doesn't. Oh, thank God he's harmless. Laughing face. He is not harmless. I repeat. He is not harmless. Chat name. UA staff. Loud one. Wait, how does Blur controlling the 0-pointer work? Isn't he doing that exam too? 0.0. Cadbury. Wait, yeah. I hadn't thought about that. Record. I've already met Blur. He's automatically been accepted. Smiley face. Main Kun. Loud one. Wait. Does that mean it'll be easier to find out who he is? Record. No, laughing face. Loud one. Cadbury. How though? Record. Now, why would I tell you all? It would only make it more obvious after all. Main Kun. Knowing the rat, I'd half guess he'd have a hologram of a person participating. Well, I haven't worked on anything good enough to mimic the person properly yet, though he could source it from elsewhere. Boss. I had an idea. Main Kun. That's a bad sign. Shut. Anyway. Could I also control some of the one-pointers too? It'd be chaotic. Laughing face. Record. Smiley face. Smiley face. Loud one. Those students are fucked. Record. Oh, and one last thing before the exam tomorrow. Cadbury. Rat God has added unknown user to the chat. Unknown user has changed their name to All Might. All Might. Hello, fellow teachers. Turn your caps lock off. All Might. I do not know how to. I also do not know which teacher is which name. Blur has changed All Might's name to caps lock. Now this is more fitting. Caps lock. Thank you. You're welcome. Caps lock. Now which hero would you be, Blur? Oh, he thinks I'm a hero. Caps lock. Are you not a hero? Cadbury. He's a random kid we've adopted in another chat who decided to join this chat too. Main Kun. He's an absolute menace. Don't trust him. Caps lock. Then why is he still in the chat? Loud one. Well, weirdly enough the chat wouldn't let him leave. Record. Smiley face. Main Kun. It was you. Asterisk degree asterisk. Izuku sent texts wishing his friends luck. The support and hero course exams were on the same day, the support exam being in the morning with the heroics exam in the afternoon in case anyone wanted to try out for both of them. He had also designed an avatar of sorts. Netsu had told him to since it'd likely make the staff more comfortable if they could see him, though he also told Izuku that he didn't have to speak, which would work out better, since he wouldn't be able to use his own voice and he'd rather not use those robot voices. The staff can read if they need to ask him something. Another thing that worked out in his favor, both Aizawa and Yamato working at UA. makes it a million times easier to use his quirk, since controlling the robots would need him to be in the internet. Izuku, having permission from Nezu, teleported into his office. None of the teachers would see him there, and it'd allow Nezu to know Izuku was ready to be introduced to the staff. I'm assuming you're ready to meet the staff, Blur? Nezu instantly looked towards Izuku, a grin spreading across his face. A similar grin spread across Izuku's in return. Nyari. Hitoshi pocketed his phone as he finally arrived at UA's gates. This was the first time he had been even remotely close to UA. According to Aizawa, if they had time to, they would have trained in some of the gyms on campus instead of just at the gyms in Aizawa's hero agency. Really, it was just one of the places underground heroes could train in, Aizawa being in charge of that specific gym due to how effective of a hero he is. Safe to say, Hitoshi was stressed out of his mind. He should do well at the written exam. Having Izuku as a tutor was absolutely amazing. Thanks to his quirk, Izuku could always find the right way to explain a topic to him, finding the most obscure videos on the internet that explained it perfectly. The practical portion, though? While Aizawa had been training him, what if it wasn't enough? Because he was busy thinking, Hitoshi didn't notice the uneven part of the path until it was too late. He put his hands out in front of him while closing his eyes, bracing for impact. Opening his eyes revealed he hadn't, in fact, hit the floor because he was floating? I am so sorry for using my quirk on you, but I figured it'd be bad luck if you had fallen. A feminine voice spoke off to his left. Looking over, Hitoshi could see the owner of the voice. The person had brown eyes with medium-length brown hair. She held her hand out to Hitoshi, who took it easily. She didn't know who he was, so she couldn't know what his quirk was. Once he was floating upright, the person let go of his hand for a second to release her quirk. Thanks, Hitoshi said, unsure how to respond. No problem. Good luck, the person replied before running away towards the building. Hitoshi would have yelled out good luck to her too, but she was already too far away by the time he thought about it. Intersection. Katsuki couldn't shake the feeling he was being watched as he walked through UA's hallways. It wasn't the same feeling as at Aldra. He knew he was being watched there. Those extras were always watching him to copy whatever the fuck he did. To see who was deemed an outcast. None of the extras walking around were watching him, all too stressed over the exam. Katsuki wasn't stressed. He knew he'd do amazing. Everyone told him that, how could he not believe it? And he wasn't about to let whoever was watching him change that. Momo took a deep breath in as she entered the UA grounds once again. Last time she was here, she failed. She hadn't gotten in through the recommendation exam. Taishiro had told her it was okay, that she hadn't wasted his recommendation. It was hard to believe though. So many other people would have fought for a recommendation. And she hadn't gotten in. This was her last chance to get into UA. And she wasn't sure whether she'd be able to do it. I'd like you all to meet Blur. Nezu introduced him, gesturing to the screen. Izuku's avatar appeared, along with a chat box. Hello. It is I, Blur. Izuku watched through the cameras to see each of the teachers' reactions. A loud sigh came from Aizawa. Of course you had to use that. I have no idea what you're talking about. Izuku did, in fact, know what Aizawa was talking about. So it's just a coincidence that your chat box looks the exact same as the Undertale one? Aizawa had the most blank stare Izuku had ever seen on his face. No comment. Izuku watched Aizawa roll his eyes. Any other questions? No one spoke, though Izuku couldn't tell whether it was a lack of questions or far too many questions. Though it was likely the latter. Great. If you do, in fact, want to ask me something, just text me it. I'll be able to see it even while controlling those fun-looking robots. Watching all the teachers' reactions was absolutely hilarious. Aizawa looked done with the day, more so than usual anyway. Yamada seemed terrified for the students, as did most of the staff. Although only a few knew him well, even the rest of the staff that had barely talked to him in the chat seemed to understand. The students were fucked. Well, insomuch as this exam would be more chaotic. Izuku wouldn't actually make it easier or harder for any examinee. That'd just be unfair, since Izuku would only be able to judge them based on how they act while under intense stress. Unsurprisingly, it didn't take long for his messages to be filled with the staff asking him all the questions they definitely already wanted to ask before. Damn, you all have so many questions. Izuku added a ding for the staff to hear when he had new messages, since they were all furiously typing away. Except for All Might, though he was slowly typing whatever his question was. After reading the message, most of the staff slowed down on their bombardment of questions, Yamada and Kayama still typing like their life depended on it, though that wasn't a surprise. Izuku looked into all the messages he was sent. Drugs. Will you eventually let me know who the fuck you are? I sweat I will eventually find out. God damn it. Swear asterisk. Don't you fusing make fun of me FO are the types. Fucking asterisk. For asterisk. Typos asterisk. Cover. I swear to fucking God. As long as you don't allow kids with zero potential to pass you'll live. Cockatoo. Reveal yourself. You have to. I will find out. I am going to pay so much attention to every and all examinee here. I will actually read through the things I am meant to just to find out who you are. Nebula. Though I would want it to be fair. I also want more rescue hero students to teach. I'm not saying to help them, but at the same time I'm not saying that. So, please? Nurse Joy. Don't hurt any of the examinees where possible. I don't get paid enough. There were more from the rest of the teachers, but most of them boiled down to either, who are you, or, do and don't make it easier for people who would be a specific type of hero, or, do not hurt the students, though the last one was repeated throughout almost all the staff that didn't know him or trust him. Then there was All Might. He, obviously, didn't seem to trust Izuku. Fair, he hadn't been in the chat as long as Izuku had, and being All Might he wouldn't exactly be told about every single case the police had. He had, of course, asked who Blur was. Everyone wanted to find out his identity, especially considering he had hacked through UA servers. And if any of them had asked Tsukachi, then they would all assume it was ability rather than quirk. A benefit to only registering his quirk in the last year, the police had searched the quirk database to death already. All Might had also asked how Izuku had gotten to know Nedzu, which was also fair. Not many people were able to talk to Nedzu, as he didn't like people on a whole for a couple of reasons. So being close enough to Nedzu to help with the exams would be weird to anyone who knew Nedzu. Izuku knew for sure All Might had to know Nedzu. All Might was learning to be a hero at the time Nedzu had started teaching there. That, and All Might must have started teaching at UA this year in search of a successor. So, Izuku decided to answer All Might's questions first. Caps lock. Young Blur. Who are you? I do know your name isn't actually Blur. And how do you know Nedzu? Also, how did you join the chat in the first place? Blur. Well, my name is Blur online and that's enough. I know Nedzu through group chats. And I joined by hacking my way in. Caps lock. How did you learn to hack young Blur? Blur. Self-taught. But I'm pretty proud of myself. Being able to hack UA was meant to be difficult. Caps lock. What else do you know? Blur. About you? Not too much. Your quirk is pretty cool. Caps lock. My quirk? What do you know about it? Blur. Well, I won't say much since how secure this chat room is. Or if Nedzu knows, and I'm sure he could see this. But I do know how old it is. And the other version of it. Izuku watched as All Might started coughing up blood. All the staff around him looked towards All Might with concern, but he just waved them all off. Obviously knowing what was happening, Nedzu told All Might to meet him in a separate room at the same time he texted Izuku to appear on the screen there. Nedzu must know about All Might's quirk then told the staff to look through the cameras at the examinees in case of any quirk discrimination. It didn't take long for Nedzu to walk into the room both Izuku and All Might had been sent to. Now, I won't ask you to leave the internet. Nedzu started, his tone leaving no room for interruptions. But we need to know. What do you know about the history of All for One and One for All? Izuku explained to both Nedzu and All Might, who had since turned into a skeleton. He left out the exact reason he had looked into it, saying he had heard it in the underground. Not entirely a lie, though it was definitely not the truth. Knowing what he did about Nedzu now, he most likely knew Izuku wasn't telling the whole truth. But he wasn't calling Izuku out on it either. Although I'm sure you already didn't plan to, I will say you cannot reveal this information freely. Nedzu's beady eyes stared into the camera Izuku was looking through as though he was looking into his soul. Which was even more terrifying since the camera Izuku had decided to look through was the invisible one. Every room in UA had multiple cameras, both visible and invisible. Understood. Instantly the mood of the room changed, with Nedzu no longer staring into his soul. Nedzu sent all might back to the rest of the staff. Oh, and one last thing, Blur. Would you be willing to help watch the written exam? To help stop people from cheating? Izuku asked. It only made sense honestly. Especially with how many cameras there were. No normal person would be able to watch them all at once. And not every program would detect cheating properly. Yes, but also to see which examinees may have done better on the written exam if they had the proper help. Nedzu explained. If an examinee does not have a diagnosis for, say, dyslexia, and they got a question wrong because they had misread it, or they ran out of time because they were being extra careful with reading each question. Looking into how they behave during the exam and previous scores on similar exams could help the examinee get a higher written score by extrapolating what their score could have been if they had the proper help needed. Izuku opened up the examinee files in the background to make the process quicker. Exactly. There are many examinees who would have gotten in via either villain or rescue points, but don't do to their mark on the written exam. I've tried to implement programs to watch through the written exam and compare with previous exams, but none have been successful. But my quirk would be better suited to multitask and determine between someone rereading or misreading something, or getting distracted, and someone who isn't actually trying. Izuku finished. Izuku dived deeper into the files while Nedzu went back to the rest of the staff. When he was needed, someone would message him. But in the meantime, Izuku decided to look through different examinees' files. He sorted through the files based on overall grades, leaving the higher graded ones for last. He'd still look through them, since grades don't determine whether someone is neurodivergent or not. But for now he'll focus on the lower grades since it's more urgent. It'll decide whether or not someone gets into UA. There weren't many people applying to UA with low grades. It made sense. If a potential examinee thought they wouldn't be able to pass the written exam, they'd be less determined to try. It didn't take long for Izuku to have a list of people to look out for. Before he could start analyzing the examinees with high grades, Nedzu texted him to reappear in the staff room. As I said before, Blur is going to help prevent cheating during the written exam. Nedzu seemingly just started speaking when Izuku had reconnected to the cameras in the room. He will also be helping control some of the one-pointers and all of the zero-pointers. Why would he be controlling the one-pointers? Maijima asked. I can understand the zero-pointers, they're too dangerous to be AI, but the one-pointers are small enough to be almost harmless. Why don't you answer that, Blur? Nedzu looked towards the screen. For the funny. Izuku burst out in laughter at the reactions. Most of the staff were confused. Nedzu started cackling. Aizawa yelled out, "Of fucking course," before he started hitting his head against the wall. Yamada and Kayama tried to stop him, though it did take a hot minute for them to actually stop him. Shizenji was not pleased. Finally, all the staff members calmed down. Nedzu instructed them all to go where they were needed as the exam would start soon. Izuku found the cameras in the exam room. Having them all open in the internet did take quite a lot of room. Good thing the internet was practically endless. Izuku quickly found the different examinees on his list, making sure to record the cameras. He saw them though separately so he could examine the footage later. He almost had a heart attack while looking through the examinees when he noticed Bakugo. Izuku had to remind himself that Bakugo didn't know he was there. It was fine. He didn't know Izuku is at UA. Pretty soon the exam started and damn, the amount of people cheating was insane. The first person he caught was the same pervert from the recommendation exam. Izuku had to do a double check, since he was sure that pervert wouldn't have been able to try for the normal exam. Unfortunately, one of his parents was a part of the HPSC. Honestly, it was good Izuku caught the pervert cheating. He couldn't imagine what would happen if the pervert got in and Aizawa couldn't expel him. Though Izuku did have access to a villain or two who'd be willing to commit some murder, but he should probably leave that as a last resort. It'd be very suspicious if every single person Izuku or Blur didn't like got killed by the same person each and every time. Izuku watched as a few examinees kept getting distracted, all seemingly for different reasons. First, there was Gyre. Her quirk made her hearing so good that she could hear the heartbeats of those close to her, according to her last quirk doctor visit, which was almost 5 years ago, so it'd be important to test her quirk limits again. Izuku noted it down. Then there was Kuda, who seemed to have generalized anxiety disorder. His posture was stiff and closed off. He kept looking towards the people around him, which Izuku could tell wasn't him trying to cheat. In fact, whenever he was staring in the direction of one person for too long, he almost instantly became even more tense, which mustn't be good for his muscles. Kuda was also trembling, likely both from the anxiety itself and from the strain caused by his tensed muscles. Finally, Izuku noticed Kaminari having a rough time. Izuku had actually already suspected Kaminari having at least ADHD, though based on how he was acting during the exam and from looking into previous exams, Izuku also suspected dyslexia as well. Soon enough, the exam ended. Izuku sent a message to Nedzu about the examinees whose written results should be at least passing if they weren't already, due to not having the right resources. Nedzu responded practically immediately, though that was expected. He wasn't doing much until the examinees finally started the practical exam. Izuku felt a feral grin spread across his face. This was going to be fun. The written exam wasn't the worst thing in the world. Hitoshi wouldn't go so far to say it was easy, a few questions felt impossible, but he was confident enough that he passed it. Having Izuku help him study definitely helped, especially when he got to the laws surrounding heroes. Izuku made a PowerPoint for Hitoshi to read through. If he had to dissect the complicated wording of the actual book, he would probably have given up. Hitoshi made the mistake of looking at it once. Never again. He finally made it to the room all the examinees were directed to go to after completing the written exam. There weren't many seats left at the back, all the people who had finished the exam earlier having taken most of them. He eventually found one, internally sighing with relief. He always chose the back of the room whenever possible. The guy he sat next to, a dude with spiky blonde hair, didn't seem pleased with it, though he doesn't tell Hitoshi to move, so he takes that as a win. Hitoshi half pays attention while Yamada explains the rules of the practical exam. He already knew most of this through Izuku's hacking. Some examinee closer to the front rudely interrupts Yamada, standing up while yelling about the fourth robot Yamada was likely about to explain. Yamada looked slightly annoyed, though there was some recognition in his eyes. Must know the examinee from somewhere. A ding sounded from Hitoshi's phone. He could have sworn he had silenced it. He pulled it out anyway to see what the notification was. This is a prestigious school. You should not be on your phone while the rules of the exam are being told to you. Hitoshi's eye twitched. And you shouldn't be interrupting a pro hero who was about to explain the stupid robot you felt the need to yell about. The other examinee finally sat back down, seemingly in shame. Chat name, the pros and cons. Or image.jpg. This dude interrupted at cockatoo. Which is really annoying. Like, chill out for a minute, the 0-pointer was literally just about to be explained anyway. Damn it. I told him not to do stuff like that this morning. Or Tenya is my brother. Thanks to going to Sumai he's been pretty uptight. You two are related? I swear it makes more sense when he's around people he's comfortable with. He'd be masking pretty hard right now. Or, oh, does he have autism too? So in Sumai he had to mask so much. Why didn't your parents send him elsewhere? Simple answer? Sumai was the safest middle school for him thanks to being born into a family of pro heroes. Or, okay, Ima, befriend him. Honestly, he needs your chaos to be able to unmask at UA. Hitoshi arrived at the zone he'd been assigned. Ingenium's brother was in the same zone, seemingly trying to decide whether or not to talk to Hitoshi. The same girl who stopped him from falling at the gate was also there, a look of determination on her face. He hoped she got in. She didn't hesitate to stop him from falling. The last person Hitoshi noticed was a guy who had spiky yellow hair with a black lightning bolt going through it. They made eye contact, making Hitoshi's heart skip a beat for some strange reason. Go! Yamada shouted, signifying the start of the exam. Hitoshi wasted no time running through the surprisingly fast opening doors. There are no countdowns in real life. Run before examinee number 415 defeats all the villains. Hitoshi pulled out his bow, extending it to its full length. Aizawa had given Hitoshi one of his old bows from before Aizawa had learned how to use his capture weapon. After meeting Hatsum, he begrudgingly let her modify the bow. For whatever reason, he couldn't say no to Izuku. He was able to get a few one-pointers before the other examinees caught up to him. From there it had become more difficult to destroy a robot before someone else stole the points. Eventually it got to the point that Hitoshi couldn't even focus on a robot, as examinees left, right, and center kept on almost getting hurt. Key word being almost, as Hitoshi kept on saving them in time. Most of the examinees looked at Hitoshi with disdain, presumably thinking he was trying to steal their points instead of realizing how much trouble they would have been in if he hadn't stepped in. Though the cute examinee with the lightning bolt in his hair appreciated it, thanking Hitoshi for pushing him out of the three-pointer's way. The ground started rumbling like an earthquake. Looking towards the center of the mock city revealed the zero-pointer, which was a lot bigger than Hitoshi had thought it would be. For being worth 0 points. Hitoshi looked at the robot, specifically the chest. Like all the other robots, it had the point worth painted on its chest. 0 points. Oop. The zero-pointer is literally overpowered. Hitoshi wanted to bang his head against the wall. Before he could continue thinking about how enticing a wall was right then, a cry of help sounded through the mock city. It took a moment for him to realize where it came from, but once he saw the same nice girl from before now stuck under rubble, he had to act. "Help me save that examinee." Hitoshi practically yelled out to whoever would listen while he ran towards her. When he got to her, Ingenium's brother and the cute Lightning Bolt examinee stood next to him. "Me and Lightning Bolt will lift the rubble while you pull her out." Hitoshi had no idea where the confidence came from at that moment, but he wasn't about to question it. Both of the examinees nodded, getting into position to help free the girl. 3. Hitoshi and Lightning Bolt both grabbed hold of the biggest piece of rubble. 2. Ingenium's brother held onto the girl's arms tightly, prepared for the signal. 1. The zero-pointer got closer. Now. All at once, Hitoshi and Lightning Bolt lifted the rubble while Ingenium's brother pulled the girl out. Once they knew she was safely out of the rubble, they dropped it in favor of helping carry her towards the exit. Halfway to the gate the bell rang, announcing the end of the physical exam. Hitoshi internally sighed in relief. It was finally over. "Are we sure it's a good idea to let the problem child control the zero-pointers?" Aizawa asked for the millionth time. "Of course." Nedzu answered with a chaotic grin. "After all, this is good practice, learning to control multiple robots at once through his current set of skills. Because of course it's a great idea to allow a child to control 7 overpowered robots all at the same time." Aizawa rolled his eyes. "Why do you have all the exams at once? I understand time-wise it's better, but how is it for marking who gets points?" Izuku asked. Half the staff jumped slightly, obviously having forgotten Izuku was watching through the screens. "Shouldn't you be connecting to the robots right now?" Powerloader asked. "Oh, I already have. Currently only connected to a few one-pointers in each exam zone. It's pretty easy to connect to them, at least after having bypassed UA's security." Izuku explained, watching as part of the color drained from Powerloader's face, as well as a few other members of the staff. It was always funny watching the staff remember that Izuku had gotten past UA's security, even if they didn't know he had only gotten past the firewalls because of his quirk. The exams happening at the same time is to ensure there is no cheating. Nedzu said, pulling a cup of tea out of nowhere. Years ago the exams would happen at different times, which caused some of the examinees to use their quirks to sneak into their friends' exams to help them defeat some of the robots. So since they will be taking their exam at the same time, it prevents people from helping each other get the points needed. That makes sense, especially since they can work together if they are in the same exam site, but the likelihood of them getting the same exam site is so low that a plan of working together to get in wouldn't work. Izuku concluded. All students would learn teamwork, but to depend on one other person to get into UA to begin with would possibly make them dependent on the other after graduating, which just doesn't work in the real world. "Should we start the exam now?" Yamada asked. "All the examinees are in the exam sites." Netsu nodded, signifying the start of the exam. Thanks to Aizawa's training, Toshi ran as soon as the doors opened, startling the other examinees in the exam site. Yaoyorozu also ran in immediately, causing Izuku to smile. He was upset to learn she hadn't gotten in through the recommendation exam, though he would be shocked if she didn't get in through this exam. Izuku noticed a few others from the recommendation exam, though he hadn't talked to many of them anyway. The cute one Kaminari was there, at the same site as Toshi. Then Izuku noticed the purple pervert trying to get closer to Yaoyorozu. This would not do. Izuku took control of the closest one-pointer, racing over to the pervert, hitting him where the sun don't shine. Yaoyorozu started running towards the pervert to help him, up until he started being creepy, in which she created an ice pack and threw it at him before running away. "I thought you said you wouldn't hurt any student on purpose," Aizawa said, although Izuku could tell he didn't really care that the pervert was hurt. He was being creepy, he gets to be the exception. Izuku replied before going back to controlling robots. Feeling chaotic, Izuku decided to take control of a few of the one-pointers in each exam site. He looked back to the staff room, waiting for the reactions. Aizawa was the first to react, banging his head on the table. Yamada and Kayama quickly stopped Aizawa from doing so. "Problem child." Aizawa stared straight into the camera, as though he was looking at Izuku. How he knew that was the camera Izuku was looking through, especially since it was one of the hidden cameras, must be through pure and utter magic. Why are there one-pointers in a conga line? Why not? I made it fair though, there's a conga line in each exam site. Izuku argued jokingly. He was a little disappointed that the one in Toshi's site was destroyed before he could see it. Izuku kept on playing with one-pointers in every exam site. For the most part anyway. He didn't control many of the one-pointers in exam site A. That's where Kaken, Katsuki, Bakugu was testing, and Izuku knew that if he were controlling more of the robots there, he'd be hiding them from him. Maybe Kaken deserved it, but it would be unfair. Finally, it was time to bring the zero-pointers out. A feral grin spread across Izuku's face, though no one could see it. The zero-pointers were released, and they did move forward. And once again, Aizawa started banging his head against the table. "What's wrong this time, Aizawa?" Izuku asked, holding back laughter. "A fucking course. That stupid dancing dragon meme." The rest of the staff looked confused. "Hey, it's not a stupid dancing dragon. Don't disrespect Toothless like that," Izuku argued while laughing. Intersection. Katsuki was in the middle of his warm-ups when he heard Present Mike yell out the start of the exam. Even though he was busy when the exam started, he was still the first in the exam site. The robots were painfully easy to deal with. This was the entrance exam. He could do this in his sleep. Anyone who couldn't easily deal with these stupid robots obviously shouldn't get into UA. He didn't think about how difficult the exam would have been for Deku. He didn't think about how Deku should be taking the exam. He didn't think. Katsuki had a clear mind and nothing was bothering him. He was absolutely acing this exam and nothing was going to change that. At some point a few one-pointers lined up in a conga line? Weird, though Katsuki hadn't bothered with them. There were more three-pointers closer anyway. Though a few one-pointers seemed to avoid wasn't the right word. They would move away from him slightly before going back to the usual attacks. Katsuki would have just brushed it off as the AI, but then he noticed how it didn't happen to any of the extras around him. Weird. Momo took a deep breath in. She had to be focused if she wanted any chance of passing the exam. She couldn't fail this time. As soon as Present Mike yelled out the start of the exam, Momo was running straight in. She wasn't entirely sure if she was meant to, there hadn't been a countdown. But at the same time, there wouldn't be a countdown in the real world, and Present Mike had yelled go. She immediately created a bow with a taser at the end, charging towards a three-pointer. Momo sighed in relief when the robot went down. She was fairly sure the taser as the end of her bow would be strong enough to take them down, but at the same time she had been fairly sure she'd pass the recommendation exam. Momo shook her head, moving on to the next robot she saw. It wouldn't do her any good to focus on how she had failed. One of the examinees yelled out in pain, causing Momo to look towards the sound. It seemed as though the robot next to it had hurt the examinee. Momo jabbed the taser end into the one-pointer, shutting it down. Then she took a proper look at the examinee that had been hurt. He seemed familiar. Momo instantly knew why he seemed familiar when the examinee started staring at her boobs. He'd been the guy who'd been getting close to the women examinees. Just the thought of getting closer to the pervert made Momo feel nauseous. She created an ice pack, already cold, and threw it at the perverted examinee before running off to get more points. Hopefully the time she spent unfortunately helping the pervert wouldn't negatively affect her chance of getting in. She had lost count of how many points she had, though it wasn't like she could keep count anyway. Too many other examinees kept injuring themselves, and while they should have been fine to continue going, Momo couldn't let them run around without something to help the pain. Most were fine with just ice packs, some she threw bandages at. Most either ignored the help or gave her suspicious looks while taking it. There were a few who thanked her, which did help her feel what she was doing was helpful. The ground began to rumble. Momo looked up. The 0-pointer. And oh shit, that's an absolutely massive robot. Was it dancing? Weird, though she could be seeing wrong. She hadn't had her eyes checked in some time, so she may need glasses. She started running away from the 0-pointer, while she believed the staff had full control over the robot and wouldn't allow students to be killed by it. Technology wasn't always reliable. Momo noticed a few examinees had fallen in their attempt to escape the 0-pointer. She helped them stand while creating an ice pack for them. It didn't take all too long after the 0-pointers were revealed for the exam to finish. She just hoped she had enough points to get in. Momo couldn't fail again. Asterisk degree asterisk. Once the end of the exam was announced, Izuku stopped all the robots. He did see a few examinees take down some of the stopped robots, so he sent the video files of them doing so over to Nedzu. Thank you for your assistance, Blur. Would you like to stay while classes are decided? Nedzu, once again, looked directly into the camera Izuku was looking through. He had changed cameras so many times. Nah, I'd rather it be a surprise. Izuku explained. Which was part of it, since it'd be fun to find out on the first day. The other part was just wanting to go home and relax. Who knew controlling robots was so exhausting? Chat name, League of No Dads. Slow decay. At Blur confirmed some rumors. Blur. Maps? Slow decay. Apparently All Might will be working at UA this year. True or false? Blur. I can neither confirm nor deny. Slow decay. So he is working there. Blur. Maybe. Slow decay. Well, if he weren't working there you would have just said no. Blur. You forget how chaotic I am. Honestly, I could say yes when he isn't going to be working there just to fuck with you. Slow decay. Fucking hell. Just tell me. Blur. Would you attack the school if he were to be working there? Slow decay. Probably. We do know for sure he is there. Blur. The students. Slow decay. I wouldn't harm any on purpose. Unless they were being little shits. Blur. And by little shits you mean getting in the way of your plan? Slow decay. Blur. So the students doing quite literally what they'd be learning to do. Slow decay. Well, when you put it like that, blur. Food. Also, that could potentially be my class. And that's not cool, bro. Slow decay. Oh, your dream school is UA? Blur. Oh, it's the best hero school in Japan. Plus Nedzu is cool. Slow decay. You've talked to Nedzu? Blur. Slow decay. How'd you manage that? Blur. My amazing personality. Slow decay. That can't be right. Blur. Chat name. The pros and cons. 10:39 p.m. Blur. Hey Aizawa. Hey Aizawa, wake up. Cockatoo. He's already awake, Blur. He's on patrol. Just, yeah, Aizawa. You silly sleepyhead. Wake you up. Drugs. Cover. Oh god, you guys. This had better been pretty frickin' important. Is the meadow on fire? Drugs. Meadow? Cockatoo. Show didn't swear? Oh god, WTF. Blur. No Aizawa. We found a map. To Candy Mountain. Candy Mountain Aizawa. Drugs. Candy. Just, Aizawa. We're going to Candy Mountain. Come with us, Aizawa. Blur. Your Aizawa. It'll be an adventure-y. We're going on an adventure, Aizawa. Adventure? Cover. Yeah, Candy Mountain. Right. I'm just gonna, go back to sleep now. Cockatoo. Why the fuck were you asleep on patrol? Blur. Aizawa. You have to come with us to Candy Mountain. Just, Aizawa. Candy Mountain. It's a land of sweets and joy. And join us. Drugs. Are they on drugs? Covet. Please stop bouncing on me. Are they with show? Cockatoo. Or is it just one of those stupid memes? Cockatoo has been muted for 5 minutes. Drugs. Why can't I be muted for only 5 minutes? Blur. Candy Mountain Aizawa. Just, yeah, Candy Mountain. Covet. Alright, fine. I'll go with you to the Candy Mountain. Blur. La 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 la. Just, la 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 la. Why are they typing that out? Blur. La 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 la. Just, la la la. Blur. La 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 la. Just, la 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 la. Covet. Ugh, enough with the signing already. Blur. Our first stop is over there, Aizawa. First stop? Why not go straight to Candy Mountain? Covet. Oh god, what is that? Blur. It's a Liopleurodon, Aizawa. Just, a magical Liopleurodon. What the fuck is a Liopleurodon? Blur. It's gonna guide our way to Candy Mountain. Drugs. A guide apparently. Covet. Alright guys, you do know that there is no actual Candy Mountain, right? Blur. Shun the non-believer. Just, Shuan. Blur. Shiyun. Covet. Yeah. Almighty leader. Demonic noises. Drugs. What the actual fuck? Oh hell no. Blur. It has spoken. Just, it has told us the way. Covet. It didn't say anything. Cockatoo is online. Cockatoo. What the fuck is even happening? Blur. It's just over this bridge, Aizawa. Just, this magical bridge of hope and wonder. They're on a bridge and, magical? Covet. Is anyone else getting like covered in splinters? Seriously guys, we shouldn't be on this thing. Blur. Aizawa. 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 Isaiah. Covet. I'm right here, what do you want? Blur. We're on a bridge, Aizawa. Drugs. Blur is fucking dead. Just, we're here. Covet. Well, what do you know? There actually is a Candy Mountain. Drugs. Stem. Cockatoo. I wasn't expecting that. Blur. Candy Mountain. Candy Mountain. You fill me with sweet sugary goodness. Just, go inside the Candy Mountain cave, Aizawa. Cockatoo. Do not go inside the Candy Mountain cave. Blur. Aizawa. Go inside the cave. Magical wonders that you'll behold when you enter. Drugs. Zashi, do you really think Sho would enter such a sketchy sounding place? Covet. Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I'm gonna stay out here. Drugs. See? It'll be fine. Cockatoo. Don't say that. Just, but you have to enter the Candy Mountain cave, Aizawa. Did random music start blasting out of your phones too? Drugs. Yes, WTF. Cockatoo. Why is this happening? Almighty leader. Oh, when you're down and looking for some cheering up, then just head right on up to the Candy Mountain cave. Drugs. Shit. Almighty leader. When you get inside you will find yourself a cheery land. Such a happy and joy-filled and perky merry land. They've got lollipops and gummy drops and some candy things. Oh, so many things that will brighten up your day. It's impossible to wear a frown in Candy Town. It's the mecca of love, the Candy Cave. We're doomed. Cockatoo. You think? Almighty leader. They've got jelly beans and coconuts with little hats. Candy rats, chocolate bats. It's a wonderland of sweets. Ride the candy train to town and hear the candy band. Candy bells. It's a treat as they march across the land. Cherry ribbons stream across the sky, into the ground. Turn around, it astounds, it's a dancing candy tree. It doesn't sound that bad. Almighty leader. In the Candy Cave imagination runs so free. So now Aizawa, please will you go into the cave? Cockatoo. Don't do it, Sho. Covet. Alright, fine. I'll go into the frickin' Candy Cave. This have better be good. Cockatoo. Just, yeah, Blur. Yaha. Goodbye, Aizawa. Just, yeah, goodbye, Aizawa. Blur has logged off. Jazz has logged off. Drugs. Oh shit. Covet. Goodbye? What? Hey, what's going on here? Who is that? Coffee has logged off. Cockatoo. Shit. He'll be fine. Right? Cockatoo. I don't fucking know. 15 minutes later. Coffee has logged on. Cockatoo. Are you okay? Covet. What happened? Arg, they took my frickin' kidney. Drugs. Chat name, the pros and cons. Cockatoo. V. Drugs. V. What's happening? Cockatoo. Show has fucking stitches. Over where a kidney should be. Drugs. Oh, what the actual fuck. Cover. I can neither confirm nor deny. Blur. Smiley face. Just. Smiley face. V. V. Cockatoo. And now I don't know whether what they were yelling about yesterday actually happened. Because there is evidence. Drugs. But on the other hand, they've done stuff like this before. V. Does that mean all that was true? Almighty leader. Smiley face. Chat name, UA staff. Blur. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. Loud one. Blur. It's a banana. Next to a banana. Kebut. Blur. Stop it. Blur. How do you keep your pants up when you're performing? It's incredible. Caps lock. Both. Blur. All might can meme? Also isn't in caps lock anymore? Caps lock. Can others not? Then yes. A friend of mine fixed my phone for me. Blur. Join the dark side. Caps lock. We have cookies. Loud one. What is happening? Blur. Bring the beat in. Caps lock. Anything for you, Beyonce. Maine Coon. Cadbury. What the fuck? Maine Coon. I should have left you on that street corner where you were standing. Blur. But you didn't. Caps lock. Change your shirt. Maine Coon. Bruh. First of all, I look good in this shirt. Second of all, I look good in this shirt. And third of all, I look good in this shirt. So tell me I don't look good in this shirt. Cadbury. The end is nigh. Loud one. I thought we had more time before the end. Maine Coon. Completely giving up. Starring me. Blur. Caps lock. Maine Coon. And introducing. Asterisk degree asterisk. Izuku was bored. None of the chats he was in were able to entertain him. Thanks to them all being adults with adult jobs. Even Hatsum and Hitoshi were busy. The villains were busy being villains. He debated joining yet another random chat room. It could work out fine, great even. He had a pretty good track record of it. But it felt far too predictable. Izuku had to have some spice in his life. He couldn't just run to random chat rooms whenever he's bored or needs advice. He looked through a few random articles about Hero Society to try and find something fun to do. Izuku wasn't entirely sure what he was looking for. A couple, who the top 10 heroes should be, articles were floating around as always. Some articles pointed out the collateral damages heroes caused. Then Izuku came across the article. What he had subconsciously been looking for. The truth behind the HPSC and the rifle hero. I'll admit I was skeptical when a reader approached me, asking me to do an article covering the rifle hero. I had never heard of such a hero, and while I had initially thought the reader had been talking about Snipe, it wouldn't have made sense to call him the rifle hero, as he primarily uses pistols. After some digging, I stumbled upon the hero this reader was truly talking about. Hero name, unknown. Civilian name Kana Tsutsumi. After reading old reports on her gave me many questions. Why didn't more people know about her? Why were all the reports so old? And most importantly of all, where was she now? The questions swirled in my head, different explanations trying but just failing to answer such questions. It took a couple days to find the answers to all these questions, but after a relentless search. If you would like to read more, buy our premium subscription for only 5,000 yen a month. Izuku started at the article. He could hack the paywall and continue reading, though there was no guarantee that the article had the correct information. He hadn't actually hacked the commission yet. Not fully at least. He's gone through some of the more restricted hero files, just to know the true statistics of said heroes, and to steal Endeavor's banking information, but that was pretty low-level stuff. The security was still annoying even at such low levels of access, the firewalls being almost as tall as UA's ones. Izuku grimaced at the thought of dealing with what he could only assume was higher, and therefore taller, security. The first thing Izuku saw when accessing the commission's files were the basics he had already hacked. He looked past all those files to try and find where the fuck the next firewall was. He couldn't see any huge wall amongst the files, which was weird if he was being honest. Were the next firewalls smaller than the initial one? That wouldn't make all that much sense, considering the initial firewall held such basic information. Izuku almost missed the door hiding behind the criminal record files. Opening it was easy, easier than Izuku would think it should be. A hallway appeared in front of him. Was this it? Did the commission think that no one would get past the initial firewall? This was laughably easy. Izuku immediately regretted such thoughts as lasers of all things started shooting towards him. He was dodging them pretty well while running through what was apparently a maze of hallways, when out of nowhere a door appeared. Izuku instantly dove towards the door, hoping that wherever it led did not have the lasers that murder hallway did. Izuku sighed out of relief as he looked around the new room he had entered. There were no lasers in sight, so he had probably gotten through that layer of security. He started walking around the new room, trying to decipher what was kept locked behind the stronger firewalls. More so what was left in this section of the stronger firewalls. While the security wasn't easy to get past, it still wasn't as impossible as other hackers made the commissioned firewalls out to be. Granted, Izuku did have an advantage, the internet being his quirk and all, but even the initial firewall was a pain in the ass. The files all had different names. Most he didn't recognize. Until he finally stumbled across the one he had been looking for. Keina Tsutsumi. To say Izuku was furious would be an understatement. Reading through Tsutsumi's files revealed that the previous hero-turned-assassin was currently in Tartarus because she killed the previous HPSC chairman. Which turns out she only killed said chairman in self-defense, once Izuku truly dug through the files. It seemed as though they were still trying to cover it up in the files, potentially to try and prevent hackers from revealing the truth. Lucky for Izuku he wasn't some ordinary hacker. He technically wasn't even a hacker at all, since he was using his quirk to do all his hacking. Though releasing her would still be difficult. According to the files, she's meant to stay in Tartarus until she dies. Just changing it to having a release date would be suspicious. Izuku Siga. He'd have to go back into the laser hallway until he found each and every file pertaining to her sentence to Tartarus. There'd probably be an easier way to find them all if Izuku was actually a hacker and didn't rely solely on his quirk. He'd have to make that a focus once he starts training his quirk more at UA. He was just about to go back through the door to the laser hallway when an idea struck. Could he disable the lasers? He'd never tried disabling any firewall before, mainly because he'd only seen physical walls which were pretty easy to get over. But if he could figure out how to prevent the lasers from firing, it'd definitely make looking through their files a million times easier. He just had to figure out how to do it. Shouldn't be too hard, right? Izuku cursed for what felt like the millionth time as yet another laser hit him. It barely hit him, but that small cut still hurt like hell. Izuku slammed open the closest door. He briefly debated returning to the real world, taking a break from the hell that was the laser hallway of doom. It might be a good idea, allowing him to really think things through. But at the same time, Izuku had no way of telling if the commission had a way to lock him out of their system. So taking a break might restart all his progress. Izuku sighed, deciding to look around the room he had stumbled into. It seemed to be one of the smaller folders, if the lack of files were any indication. The walls were somehow brighter. Izuku noticed now that he really looked at them. In the center of the room was an orb? Some floating circle made of light? Izuku had no idea what he was looking at. It glowed the same blue the hallways seemed to glow. He walked towards it, not really sure what he was doing. He reached his hand out to it for some reason unknown to him. A bright light, even brighter than the orb itself, appeared as Izuku's hand landed on said orb. It took him a minute to get his vision fully back, and even then he still had some black spots on the edge of his vision. The room was so much bigger now. In fact, it didn't even seem like a room anyway. Was the orb he found just now the thing he was looking for this whole time? It was an orb? Izuku was expecting some form of robot based on the lasers he'd been dealing with trying to find, well, this apparently. He collected all the files that mentioned Tsutsumi. He just had to figure out how to release her without being suspicious. Izuku knew his limits. For the most part. Maybe. There was only one way Izuku could think of releasing her without causing too much suspicion. Chat name, Hacker Rats. Hacker. So I'd like to release someone from Tartarus. Rats. Hacker. Keina Tsutsumi. She was a hero-turned-assassin-turned-villain. Rats. Yes, I remember her existence. What made you want to release her? Hacker. Well, first of all, she seems cool. I was also bored, so I was looking at random articles on the internet. As one does. Rats. As one does. Acker. And I feel like she'd be good for you. Like yes, she was an assassin. And yes, she killed the last HPSC chairman. But it was in self-defense. Frets. Oh, you've hacked the commission? Acker. Yup. Frets. How was it? Acker. Well, I didn't like the laser hallways. But I did learn more about my quirk, so not the end of the world. Frets. Interesting. Did you get hit by any of the lasers? Acker. Sort of. A couple grazed me, but I didn't get fully hit. Frets. Do you know if it transfers over to your real body? Acker. Haven't tested that yet. Though I only just got past the last firewall and I didn't want the chance of them making the security even harder before I finally got through it all. Anyway, do you think you could release her from Tartarus? Frets. I'll tell you once it's done. Acker. Thanks. Izuku teleported himself out of the internet. He looked towards where he remembered some of the lasers slightly hitting him and the marks were still there. They didn't hurt as much as they did in the internet, but they still weren't the best thing in the world. Izuku sighed, rummaging through his drawers. When he moved into Aizawa and Yamada's place, he obviously brought as much as he could, which included burn cream, just in case. For the most part, he could easily cover the small burns with his clothes. Though a laser did get his face, if only so slightly. Could he blame it on Hatsum? He felt bad blaming it on her, but she was known to blow things up. And Izuku had gone out to help her with different experiments and come back to the house with a couple burns. It wasn't like he had to tell them when he went out to meet with her, so if they asked he'd just mention Hatsum and hopefully that'd be enough. A couple days after Izuku had first heard of Tsutsumi, she was finally being freed. Nedzu had pulled a few strings and changed a few records, which was both quicker and slower than Izuku was expecting. On one hand, it's Nedzu, literally the smartest being in the world. On the other hand, the commission definitely had some form of hatred towards Nedzu and tried to limit his power within the governing world wherever possible. They were the reason the normal entrance exam for UA was so biased towards physical and flashy quirks. Either way, Tsutsumi was being released today, and Nedzu decided to take Izuku with him, which he did appreciate. He had a million questions for Tsutsumi, most of them quirk-related, though a few were more focused on how the commission treated her, both when she was a hero and when she was sentenced to Tartarus. Izuku also had a couple questions for Nedzu, the most important one being what would be happening to Tsutsumi now that she was freed. He had a slight fear that the commission may try to kill her off, in an attempt to ensure the press wouldn't hear anything about the treatment of those in Tartarus. Ah, there you are, Izuku. After a bit of talking, both Izuku and Nedzu had decided it'd be best for him to refer to Izuku by his first name rather than blur. Ready to go get Tsutsumi? Yes, though I do have a question. Where will she be going? Izuku asked while hopping into the self-driving car Nedzu apparently had. I doubt the commission ever planned on her leaving Tartarus, and it must be difficult to get a job with Tartarus on your record. As long as she is to accept, I am going to offer her a job at UA. Nedzu explains. She obviously has the skills to be a successful hero, and as you mentioned, I doubt it would be particularly easy for her to get a decent job elsewhere. Plus, all UA staff members can use the teacher dorms already on campus whenever they need to. It only made sense to have some staff housing on campus. Being a pro-hero came with the potential of villains trying to find out where you lived. Whether it be to kill the hero, kidnap them, or use their family as ransom, heroes had to be careful with where they lived and how easily they can be recognized outside of costume. Yamada looks drastically different out of costume. Aizawa not so much, but he is also an underground hero and doesn't have to worry about being followed the same way Yamada likely would. Eventually they arrived at Tartarus. The building was massive, even taller than the firewalls Izuku often found himself climbing over. Nedzu told him to stay in the car, much to Izuku's relief. While he doubted the commission would do anything, hell they didn't even know who he was, there was still the fear of something happening. Maybe he'd been reading too many conspiracy theories lately. Though it didn't help that some of the commission's files he'd read in the last few days seemed to confirm said theories. Nedzu wasn't gone for long, returning with Tsutsumi quicker than Izuku was expecting. She had short purple hair, with pink streaks throughout it. Probably not quirk-related, at least not directly. Maybe a secondary trait of sorts? She was still wearing the uniform they had given her in Tartarus, which Izuku was not a fan of. Like come on, she's out of that hellhole, the least they could do is give her some normal clothes. Who's the kid? Tsutsumi asked once the car had finally left Tartarus. This is Izuku Midoriya. He's the one who hacked into the commission. Nedza gave a simple explanation. He told me what he found on you and requested I help release you. Which reminds me, I was meant to ask you about employment. Tsutsumi looked confused, though Izuku wasn't sure if it was at the whole, this child hacked a government organization, or at Nedza's question. Honestly, it was probably both. Employment? Tsutsumi seemed to finally settle on. Well, while I'm aware All Might is a competent hero, in the regard of fighting villains, said skill may not translate well into teaching. So therefore I would need a hero to join him to make sure he doesn't push the students too far too quickly. I know you don't have any training in this field, and that you haven't been active in a good while, but minus the act of self-defense that placed you in Tartarus, you've proven to be a competent hero with good strategic thinking. Tsutsumi's eyes widened. While I'm certain you could teach the students yourself, I don't think the commission would approve. But having you as a teaching assistant instead, and with the symbol of peace there too, the commission won't be able to prevent your employment. Tsutsumi, understandably, needed a moment to process all of what Nedza had said. Are you sure it's safe for me to be around them? Tsutsumi finally asked. It's not that I don't trust your judgment, and I'm certainly not ungrateful for such an offer. It's just, what if I snap again? Izuku frowned. Did she really blame herself for what happened? That chairman was so corrupt that the only reason he still had a job was from the commission covering it up. If that is a concern for you, Hound Dog is the school's counselor and would be more than okay to test your mental state to confirm that nothing will happen. A small smile slowly made its way on Tsutsumi's face. Thank you. If Hound Dog finds nothing wrong, then yes, I would appreciate the opportunity of working at UA. Izuku was relaxing in his room, somehow not causing chaos, when 4 dings erupted from both his phone and head. He would like it to be noted that any and all chaos committed today should be blamed on any and all people texting him. It took Izuku a moment to find where the messages had come from. His mind is like an internet browser, it has 19 tabs, 3 of them are frozen. And he has no idea where the music is coming from, though he can't be sure whether that is just because of his quirk or not. I forgot the results were sent out today, Izuku thought to himself, making sure the aforementioned thought stayed as a thought. He did not need his quirk sending each and every thought he had as a message to people. After a moment of thinking, Izuku decided to make a group chat with the people who got their results. Plus Todoroki. That dude definitely needed more friends, from the small amount of time Izuku has actually spent near him. Chat name, new chat. 5 unknown users have been added to the chat. Unknown user changed their name to Midoriya. Midoriya has changed unknown user's name to Shinso. Midoriya has changed unknown user's name to Todoroki. Midoriya has changed unknown user's name to Yaoyorozu. Midoriya has changed unknown user's name to Hatsum. Midoriya has changed unknown user's name to Kaminari. Midoriya. I think that's everyone I was planning on adding. Kaminari. That's fun. Shinso. Midoriya. That and like everyone but Todoroki messaged me about the results from UA entrance exam, so it honestly makes it easier to talk about it in the one chat. Todoroki. Why am I in this chat? Midoriya. Why not? I mean, you seemed pretty chill when we met at the rec exams, so I figured your friend material. Todoroki. How did you get my number? Shinso. He's just creepy like that. Midoriya. Rude. Yaoyorozu. I do have to say, that was quite rude, Shinso. Shinso. The shithead deserves it. Shinso has been muted for 5 minutes. Midoriya. Anyways, based on the messages almost all of you sent me, none of you know whether you've gotten into UA, except for Todoroki. Kaminari. Yaoyorozu. That is correct. Hatsum. Ding ding ding. Todoroki. How is Shinso meant to answer this if he is muted? Midoriya. He isn't. I already know he hasn't opened it, both from the message he sent me earlier and from just knowing him well. Oh, Todoroki. Okay then. Kaminari. So everyone here is going to UA? Hopefully at least? Midoriya. Yep. And everyone here is planning to be hero course except for Hatsum, who'll be support course, which is honestly pretty close to hero course anyway. Hatsum. Everyone here needs to have at least 5 babies made by me. Laughing face. Midoriya. Before anyone freaks out. The babies are her inventions. Kaminari. I am no longer freaking Otu. Anyway, that sounds vaguely threatening. But it does mean I have a guaranteed support person, so. Sounds good. Midoriya. Be careful though. Her stuff does explode. Hatsum. Only half the time. Yaoyorozu. Wouldn't you want it to be close to never blowing up? Hatsum. Explosions are part of the process. Almost all my babies explode at some point. Normally before the prototype is finished. Though some wait until testing starts. Shinso has been unmuted. Shinso, first of all, fuck you Zuka. Midoriya. Shinso, second of all. What are we doing? Midoriya. I mean we could meet up somewhere? Everyone who needs to can open their results letters and we can celebrate together, or help comfort if needed, but I doubt it. Yaoyorozu. You have a lot of faith in us, Midoriya. Midoriya. I mean I'm like 99% sure you all got in. I have my ways. Kaminari. Mysterious. The cool. Shinso. Don't encourage him. Kaminari. Ima do the opposite of that. Midoriya. Oh, asterisk caret caret asterisk. Todoroki. Midoriya. Oh, depending on your phone there might be a Kamaji keyboard. Todoroki. Kaminari. Oh, I love those. Midoriya. Shinso. Suku. After a lot of arguing, mainly from Izuku and Toshi, it was finally decided they'd all meet near Takoba Municipal Beach. It was the thing closest to them all. Well, it was pretty far from Todoroki's home, but he'd told them he had to do some training with his father. They had tried to figure out a time that Todoroki could also join, even if only for a short while, but it seemed as though training would last all day. Which reminded Izuku that he had to look into Endeavor. Which probably meant getting Tsukachi involved. At some point anyway. It didn't take too long for everyone to find each other near the beach. To prevent confusion, Izuku introduced them all to each other. Oh wait, Shinso, you're the dude who saved me during the exam. Kaminari pointed out. It was nothing. To the average person Toshi seemed indifferent. But Izuku noticed the slight blush spreading across his face. Let's open our letters already. Hatsum shouted, briefly startling both Toshi and Yaoyorozu. It was decided that Hatsum would go first, both due to her excitement and the other's anxiety over their own results. A disc fell out of the envelope as soon as Hatsum opened it. Izuku debated hacking into it, though before he could make a decision, a hologram of Power Loader appeared. She had gotten first place in both the written aspect and practical aspect of the entrance exam. Izuku wasn't all too surprised with the results, nor was Hatsum. Toshi was a little shocked, though he recovered quickly, likely remembering all the chaos Hatsum had caused not even a couple days prior. Oh, you really know your stuff. Kaminari turned to Hatsum. I need all my support items to be made by you. I agree, it is rather impressive. You did get almost perfect results. Yaoyorozu added. Hatsum reached towards her bag, though Izuku grabbed her arm before she could pull out something that would likely explode in all of their faces. Hatsum, you can't just shove your possibly explosive babies into people's faces. They haven't even seen their results yet. How she was able to transport such explosion-prone items, Izuku would never know. Fine. Hatsum rolled her eyes, freezing halfway through the action. But, I need to give you these babies right now, Blur. Izuku ignored the slight looks of confusion on both Kaminari and Yaoyorozu's faces. If I let you show me those babies right now, will you finally let us watch the others open their letters? Hatsum nodded faster than what Izuku thought was humanly possible, immediately reaching back into her bag. Izuku was honestly a little curious, since he knew some sort of support item connected to the internet had to be in the bag. It had taken Izuku a while to realize he could sense devices to some degree. Honestly, an embarrassing amount of time, which he would never admit out loud. Finally, Hatsum found whatever it was she had to show Izuku. A smaller bag was pulled out of her bag. This, Hatsum gestured at the bag, is a bag filled with a bunch of prototype internet disks. They should, in theory, allow you to teleport in and out of them at will, meaning you could throw them onto a villain, it will stick, and you can teleport to their base in a matter of seconds. Hatsum handed the bag over to Izuku. He really did want to try them out. But they were there to find out the results of everyone's exams. I'll be sure to test this out when I get the chance to Hatsum. Izuku looked back to the others. So who's going next? It took them a moment to decide who'd open their letter next. All three remaining unknowns all anxious over their results. Finally, Kaminari suggested they open all three at the same time. It was a little difficult for Izuku to focus on three people at once, watching all their reactions. Not to mention the noise that came from three holograms overlapping one another. Then Izuku got the genius idea to just pull up the results from UA's servers. Yaoyorozu had gotten first place. It was good that Yaoyorozu got first place. Amazing even. But Izuku saw who got second. Kaken got second place. He never got second place. He always got first place. Izuku was now both terrified and excited for the school year like never before. He'd have to deal with Kaken again, which was always terrifying, but he had Aizawa as his teacher. And Kaken had gotten second place in the entrance exam. Maybe just maybe it'd knock his ego down a few pegs. One could dream anyway. Izuku kept going through the results to find his remaining friends' names. Toshi had gotten 7th, and Kaminari had gotten 9th. Overall amazing scores, especially since all of them had gotten at least a few rescue points. Izuku was somehow both excited and dreading UA for various reasons. He knew why he was excited, of course. It was UA after all. Though he couldn't quite place why he felt the dread. Was it simply from his past school experiences? Aldra had been a hellhole for sure. But Nabu hadn't been the worst thing in the world. Sure, Yokoyama and his friends were shitty, but he got to meet Toshi. Izuku shrugged it off. He was probably forgetting something important, but oh well. That's a problem for future Izuku. He was really excited to see who would be in his class. He knew all his friends would be. They'd been very excited about it after all. Though he didn't check to see who else would be in his class, mainly because he didn't know anyone else. Or at least didn't know the other people enough to really care who was in his class. Monoma might have been nice to have in his class. With how his quirk worked, Monoma would have to analyze how a quirk worked before copying it, or else it'd be practically useless to him. Izuku hoped that Monoma had already started learning analysis, but if he hadn't, then Izuku would be more than happy to help. He shook himself out of his thoughts as he got closer to UA. Aizawa and Yamada had offered to drive him, but he'd chosen to walk. The apartment was close enough to UA that it wouldn't be much trouble to walk, and he wanted to meet up with his friends near the gate. Izuku also didn't want anyone to accuse him of some sort of nepotism. Yeah, Aizawa had recommended him, and yes, Aizawa was his foster parent, but Izuku would like to think he'd gotten into UA on his own. He ignored the memory of Nedzu telling him the interview was merely a formality. Nedzu didn't count. He knew eventually people would probably find out that Aizawa and Yamada were his foster parents, but he'd burn that bridge when he got to it. Just like he would if anyone else from the group chat found out he was Blur. Almost as soon as he went through the gates, Hatsum was dragging him over to the others. Toshi and Kaminari were talking to each other, which made Izuku smile. He was worried that Toshi might have a harder time opening up to all the new people at UA, with how the people at Naba treated him. So Izuku was understandably ecstatic seeing those two talk. "Hey Toshi, Kaminari," Izuku called out once he got close enough. Apparently that was also close enough for Hatsum to let go of him and sit down next to her backpack. It didn't take long for her to pull out one of her babies and start working on it. "Hey Midoriya." Yaoyorozu and Todoroki went ahead. Kaminari pointed towards the main building. Well, it was more that Todoroki walked past and Yaoyorozu went with him to make sure he wasn't alone. Izuku mentally checked the time. They had plenty of time until homeroom started, but it might be good to make sure they knew how to get around the place. Izuku already had the map in his mind, but only Toshi knew he'd hacked UA, and a map of the school wasn't exactly open to the public. Plus, his friends shouldn't be relying on him for directions all the time. Well, we should probably start heading to class too. Just in case we get turned around or something. Izuku ignored Toshi's unimpressed stare in favor of helping Hatsum up. Kaminari insisted on leading the way, happily pulling out the map he'd bought from UA when he got his uniforms. Izuku figured if they did get lost then he'd step in, but he was pretty content on letting everyone, except Toshi, believe that he didn't know his way around UA. If anything, this gave him the chance to annoy his favorite heroes. Chat name. The pros and cons. Blur. Guess who's at UA? Covet. Blur. Can't really do anything about it. Covet. I could expel you. Cockatoo. How are you gonna expel him if you don't know who he is? Covet. I'll expel the whole class. Cockatoo. No, you will not. What about our child? Drugs. Fuck, he used grammar. But also, what about my kid, huh? Covet. Those two can stay. Blur. Okay, but consider, they'd be lonely. Plus, I'd still find a way to stay in your class. Covet. You'd reveal yourself that way. Blur. Faction. Covet. The fuck you mean nah? I think he means nah. Speed has been muted for 1 hour. Blur. Speed has been unmuted. It was times like this that Izuku was so happy he didn't need to be in the internet to use his quirk. He'd just have to be careful with it during classes. As much as he wanted to constantly annoy Aizawa during class, he also knew it'd be a bad idea. Izuku wasn't opposed to Aizawa and Yamada finding out eventually, just not too early into the school year. Mainly due to his anxiety telling him that they would absolutely lose their shit if they found out he was Blur. Izuku only had to redirect Kaminari a couple times. They had split up with Hatsum at some point, her yelling something about claiming her bench in the support labs. Izuku assumed it was like trying to get to a classroom early to get the best seats, normally the ones as close to the back as possible. They were almost at the classroom when the yelling started. It didn't seem like it was over anything really important, from what they could make out. Something about someone else being disrespectful, or something like that. Izuku didn't bother looking through the cameras, deciding that if it was actually something, that Aizawa could deal with it. Huh, that kinda sounds like the dude who had some sort of speed quirk. Kaminari pointed out, looking towards Izuku and Toshi. Now that you mention it, it definitely sounds like him. Toshi replied. I would say how annoying the year would be with him in our class, but that wouldn't be giving him a fair chance. Yeah, we only saw how he got when he was stressed out. Izuku pointed out, not mentioning anything else as he figured it wasn't his place. Yeah, wait, didn't you get in through the recommendation exam Midoriya? Kaminari asked, looking utterly confused. Oh shit, Izuku tried to keep his face neutral. Oh well, I saw him when meeting with Toshi after the exams. Izuku lied, hoping Kaminari wouldn't ask any further. Also hoping that Toshi wasn't feeling like being a little shit and calling him out on it. That makes sense. Damn, I forgot how tall these doors were. Kaminari stared up, looking at where the doors and ceiling met. Same. Though at least we know UA is accommodating to all quirks. Izuku opened the door, pulling it open wide enough for all three of them to go through at the same time. Izuku barely walks into the classroom when he hears an explosion. Green eyes meet red for a moment. And only a moment. For in that moment, Izuku reached out to grab his friend's arms. And promptly disappeared. One moment Izuku was looking at the one person he had never wanted to see again. The one person who he knew he could see. Izuku was reminded of his existence less than a month prior, yet he had completely forgotten the possibility of seeing said person existed. The next moment he was in the internet. His safe haven. Except how much of a safe haven was it if everyone was aware of it? What the fuck? Izuku was suddenly aware that he was not, in fact, alone. He had pulled two of his cute friends into the internet with him. That was certainly new, not the cute aspect. He was already wildly aware of that. Shit, I didn't mean to do this. No dash, Izuku's voice started failing him near the end. Hey, Izuku, it's okay, we're not mad at you. Just surprised. Izuku looked up at Toshi through his tears. Yeah, Midoriya. Izuku looked towards Kaminari. He felt like he needed sunglasses on with how brightly Kaminari was smiling. If anything, this just makes the day even more interesting. Where are we? We're in the internet. Izuku mumbled out, unsure of how he felt at that moment. On one hand, he's now learned he can bring others into the internet with him, which he'll have to bring up to Netsu at some point. On the other hand, this was a pretty inconvenient time to learn, develop, such an ability. Whoa, really? Kaminari asked, looking around the void. How do you look up things here? Like I can see a couple things floating around, but how do you get what you want? Well, I normally just think about it. Izuku explained, bringing up a new tab on Google as an example. But you guys would probably need to say it out loud since your minds aren't connected. Cute cat videos. Toshi said in a completely serious voice, causing both Izuku and Kaminari to burst out in laughter. It only took a moment for YouTube to open. It's definitely voice-controlled for us. Hell yeah. Hey, so I want... What do I want? Kaminari was tapping his chin as he thought. Which was honestly adorable. Izuku started to blush. First Toshi, now Kaminari? What was happening to him? As much as I'd love to continue to use the internet like Zuku can, we'd better get back to the real world before the teacher appears. Toshi reached out and grabbed Izuku's hand, motioning for Kaminari to do the same. Izuku closed his eyes, imagining himself back in the classroom from before while also imagining Toshi and Kaminari with him. While he normally wouldn't think too hard while teleporting, he was also normally only teleporting himself. He didn't want to accidentally leave Toshi and Kaminari alone in the internet. Izuku opened his eyes when he heard the gasps of what were probably his classmates. A couple things happened at once. Bakugo jumped towards Izuku, palms burning. Toshi and Kaminari jumped in front of Izuku, arms braced for impact. And Aizawa opened the door. It took less than a second for the underground hero to realize what was happening and use his capture weapon to prevent Bakugo from hurting Izuku's friends. Izuku felt a little bad. He knew that Aizawa was going to test their situational awareness first by waiting to see how long it took the class to notice him. Apparently that's what he did every first day, with Yamada and Kayama going on and on about it in the chat. You lot have 30 seconds to explain what happened here or you're all expelled. Aizawa activated his quirk, mainly staring at Bakugo who had been trying to blow up the capture weapon. Toshi wasted no time in telling Aizawa the truth. We walked in, Explosion Guy and Zuku made eye contact, Zuku accidentally used his quirk, we came back, and Explosion Guy tried to attack us. Is that so? Aizawa looked away from Bakugo, deactivating his quirk in the process. He looked over at Izuku, with what looked to be concern in his eyes, but Izuku wasn't entirely sure he was reading the pro-hero's face properly. Aizawa released Bakugo from the capture weapon with a glare. I will not tolerate students attacking each other outside of heroics lessons. This is your one warning. Izuku was honestly shocked when Bakugo didn't start arguing with Aizawa. He was obviously furious at the whole thing, but he didn't talk back. Though he guessed it made sense, this was Bakugo's dream school. It would be really stupid to do something to get expelled on the first day. I'm your homeroom teacher. My name is Shoyuta Aizawa, pro-hero Eraserhead. Aizawa grabbed a pair of the student sports uniform from his sleeping bag that had been left by the door. These will be in your assigned lockers in the changing rooms. Get changed into them and meet me outside. You have 15 minutes. Izuku started walking towards the changing rooms immediately, hoping the rest of his class would take that as a sign to be quick. His friends would. He had already made sure all of them were aware that their homeroom teacher was fostering him, though he had also told them not to spread it around. He changed as quickly as possible, a virtual timer going in his mind. Izuku looked around to see how the other guys were doing. Toshi and Kaminari were almost done, getting changed almost as quickly as Izuku had. Almost everyone else was chatting while slowly getting changed. The only other people getting changed as quickly as Izuku had were Todoroki and Baku. Izuku arrived at the field with about 5 minutes to spare. He was so exhausted from earlier that he leaned on Toshi's shoulder while Kaminari asked him more questions about his quirk. He was so exhausted he didn't notice the slight blush appearing on Toshi's cheeks, nor the knowing look Aizawa had on his face after spotting the boys. Todoroki and Bakugo arrived less than a minute later, along with Ida and Tokoyami. All the girls came out a couple moments later. Pretty much all the other guys were late. Not by much, only a minute or two, but they were still late. Time is precious. Part of your training here at UA will be focused on changing into your hero costumes almost instantly. Tragic events don't wait for you to be ready. Aizawa looked over the class as he spoke. Izuku was a little disappointed that there weren't enough cameras for him to look through. He could see the class from behind, but he couldn't look at the class the same way Aizawa was. Maybe he could talk to Nedzu about that. What are we doing out here? What about orientation? One of the girls piped up. Izuku's fairly sure her name is Uraraka. Here at UA the teachers have free range over how they teach their classes. I only have 3 years to train you for the heroics world. Every moment counts. Therefore my class doesn't go to frivolous events such as orientation. Izuku mentally connected to the cameras watching the orientation. Already half the student body were sleeping, with a couple of the teachers doing the same. Today we will be doing a quirk apprehension test. Back in middle school you did different exercises to learn your physical limits. Today we'll be doing the same exercises but with the use of quirks. Some of his classmates were still hung up on the lack of orientation. Then there were those who were yelling about how fun the quirk apprehension test is bound to be. Izuku mentally winced, already knowing how much Aizawa hated people referring to heroics as fun. Rip his classmates. Aizawa silenced them all with his quirk. You think this is going to be fun? That hero work will be fun? Villain attacks? Natural disasters? Aizawa deactivated his quirk, putting in eye drops. Izuku took that moment to quickly look at his classmates, most of whom looked ashamed of themselves. How about this? Whoever gets last place in the quirk apprehension test will be expelled. While Izuku was aware that he'd likely do well, he was also aware of Aizawa's track record when it came to expulsions. And even if he had, currently being fostered by said teacher, privileges preventing him from being expelled, he would still worry for his classmates, who could potentially be amazing friends given the chance to get to know them. It was interesting to see how half the class started yelling about it being unfair, or yelling about Aizawa not being able to do that, while the other half stayed silent, likely remembering what Aizawa had said earlier. It took Aizawa another quirk-infused glare to get the class to quiet down. Much to Izuku's relief and slight discomfort, it was a weird feeling, having his connection to the internet severed like that.